right. Shalom, everybody. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Welcome, everybody. Grand Rising. Um, Bakwar Tav. Anai Kofi. Shalom. Shai Shalom. Anai Kofi. Mashalom. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? I think I said it already. Ni hao, namaste, osayo, ohio. I see you. Namaste. Kamsamida. Aqua Abba, Itesen, Habari, Mimini Kofi, Nina Franco, Kutana Wewe. Grand Rising to everybody. This is Pastor Kofi. I'm Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And I'm excited to be in your presence today and to have some conversation with you on this rising. And as we continue in this Code Breaker series, we give all praise and honor once again to Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Mind, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. She has many different tinctures, which are natural medicines. The tincture of this month, the feature tincture, is anxiety release. And those of you who would like to be able to support her business, which is the business of making sure that our diaspora, the health of our diaspora is her business, we would love for you to honor that. And we thank you for doing so in advance. And we praise Yah for you. And thanks for being on with us. So we are to the moderators, the ministerial staff, the SOC. If this is your first time with us, one time of many, if we appreciate your presence today. We honor your presence today. We're thankful and grateful for your presence today. And we're excited to be able to talk to you today and continue this Code Breaker series. If you agree with this, disagree with this, there's no problem. We just ask is simply that you treat people as human beings and that you honor others' beliefs on here. And really, we're coming from a cultural perspective. So we're not here saying that you have to agree with everything or anything for that matter. We're coming on here today to simply say that there is a system of belief that we believe that if you would look into it and value it and see it for what it is, that you might be able to grow and learn. We don't come to give you context without facts. We don't come to give you facts without context. We come to give you both. And so we thank you for today. And we are in our Code Breaker series today. And so we're going to get ready to start that. Before we do, let's say shalom to everybody on YouTube, everybody on TikTok. We have a little bit of limit today as far as we're not going to have as many platforms up as we normally do, but we're thankful to those who are on. And of course, you can always go on to YouTube to find this playlist. This playlist in particular is called Code Breakers. Let's go ahead and say shalom to everybody. Once again, Bakwar Tav, Grand Rising, Rich Risings. We hope that you all are doing well. How you doing, Minister Sonia? How you doing, Schnet? Thanks for being on with us. We appreciate everybody's presence. Let's see, Yasan Ma, Erica Hobson, how you doing? Tin Man, Dripak, Brother Keith, Elion, Sonny Ray, Eugene from the D, Old Headed Energy, Robin Grayson, Oil Goat, Her 3802, David the Quiet Storm, Sister Monica, the list goes on and on. Irania. I don't know if it's Mattia or Matt Eats Cat. I'm not sure, but thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Marky? Lionheart71. If I missed your name for some reason, please charge it to my head and not to my heart. It is not my intention to miss your name. We will try our best. I am not the Most High, so I do make mistakes, and I cannot see all, but as much as we can, we'll try to answer whatever questions, comments, or concerns that you may have. But today we're going to go back into our Code Breaker series, as we said earlier, and today we're talking about the Pimp Code. And I know for some, you'd be like a pastor or people who say they serve the Most High. Why in the world are we talking about code breakers, but they're talking about the pimp code? Whereas because a lot of people have been pimped. Whether you be pimped by pimps, you be pimped by politicians, you be pimped by priests, you be pimped by pastors. And so there it is. Yeah, I got the reference point. Thank you. So, but we appreciate you guys. How you doing, Brother Naya? How you doing, User 685? How you doing, Miss Pierce? And a problem in our community is that we don't talk about this. But we're going to use for a reference point today, although we can use scripture as well, of course, but we're going to use for reference point today, we're going to use a book written by a former pimp named Iceberg Slim. And he's written a book named Pimp. It's from the 1940s. He's a pimp from, so back then, and grew up in a different time, even though it's a similar time, as we'll find out. And we want to talk about this once again, because there's one of the quotes that we'll talk about today. Matter of fact, we'll see if we can start here. One of the quotes that we'll talk about today is something that's very interesting. And the Pope, the quote goes like this: says, he says, Slim. So this is somebody who's a pimp talking to him, trying to teach him how the game goes. He says, Slim, I hope you ain't sex that pretty bitc. You know what? I'll just say B whenever we get to that term. I hope you ain't sexed that pretty B. You believe me, right? Or yet, sorry, help me that pretty B yet. Um, believe me, Slim, a pimp is really a whore who's reversed the game on whores. How you doing, Minister Nice? All right, I'm gonna say that again. How you doing, Hadassa? Um, he says a pimp is really a whore who's reversed the game on whores. Wow, right? That's the starting point. At least for me, when I was going back over this stuff and I started looking at it, and we'll talk about some stories that come out of the book and some things and how we can see what goes on in the Republic of the United States Corporation. But and how you doing, Sister Sharice? How you doing, Brother Alton? It says what? Believe me, Slim, a pimp is really a whore who's reversed the game on whores. And that in of itself describes a whole bunch of stuff. A whole bunch of stuff going on in the culture, in the diaspora, in the United States Corporation, that you have a bunch of people, the high value man that's come out, the woman that needs the man to only serve her and not serve anything else, all these different things that we're having problems with today, is you're dealing with people who've been pimped and have realized the only way to make it in this system is to become what has been hurtful and harmful unto them. How you doing, Gwendolyn? Right? And this is a code that we've got to break. We got to decipher this, right? You go to a 9 to 5, and you are pimped. We'll go more into some of these things as well as we go through, but this is something that we're not aware of. We don't even think about it. So, for example, I won't be able to read through all these. If you want to take a screenshot and try to get some of these terms, I'll try to give you some of these as well as we're on YouTube. There's one I believe that's missing on here. This is not the actual glossary from his book. If you go read the book Pimp, there's actually a glossary that goes with it. I couldn't get that glossary, at least find one that was one that we could put up here on the screen that would fit. But if you look up this glossary, if you will, right? If you look up this glossary, what you'll discover is there's something that's missing in this glossary and all these things. By the way, you'd be surprised on this list. You have things like a bottom or a bottom B, right? Yeah, stripped of your identity to a certain extent, of course. Yeah, right. You know, and so a bottom B, what is a bottom B? A bottom B. Everybody wants to be a bottom. Interesting enough, in this, well, not everybody, but a lot of people in this LGBTQ plus thing, they want to be a bottom. But a bottom is supposed to be somebody that basically is appointed by the pimp to basically make sure that the other whores will stay in line. That's what it is, right? Yeah, it's the most coveted girl. But you have all these people that say they want to become bottoms. All these men. Jail culture. Pimp culture. You'd be surprised when you look on this list, you'll see wifey on this list, right? I remember when I met my wife and tried to use the term wifey. Now she didn't, I don't know if she knew this or not at the time, but she was highly offended. Don't call me wifey, call me wife. And I got the memo, but I didn't really comprehend it till I really started digging into books like this and started realizing that, wait a minute, oh, a wifey is a term it's a term for those being prostituted and required to call the other females in the stable. Hmm. See, we use a lot of terms. We don't even know where they come from. That's why we're going over today in this code breaker series. We're going over the pimp code. How you doing, Samantha Mitchell? It's important. It's relevant. So it's a term once again for those being prostituted are required to call the other females in the stable. I'm sorry, a term those, I'm saying it wrong. A term those being prostituted are required to call the other females in the stable. So wifey was a term and is a term that really is used. You said, why am I telling them? Because I want my people to know that they paying pimped. And if there's anybody in here who's pimping people in any way, shape, or form, well, then this isn't for you today. Why wouldn't I tell? Why would I make sure that people stay in committed relationships to where they're being pimps by the U.S. government, by their own husbands, by their own wives, by their own pastors, whomever? Is my people lingo? No, this is stuff that okay. Well, once again, if your whole argument is to try and, you know, uh, say that somebody's wrong before you know what they're saying, then that's unapologetically sound. So if the argument is if you're trying to listen, then feel free to listen in, right? But a lot of people are out here not realizing that they're being pimped. What about a quota? See, people use these terms before the pimps did, and just because people weren't called pimps, right? Like, don't be surprised by the Bill Clintons of the world when you're like, well, how did he do what he did to Monica Lewinsky? Pimps do what pimps do. Hillary's a bottom, and then Hillary got enough power where she was able to get out. Now she can pimp like her husband. You know, this is stuff that's there, right? Grooming, of course, when a trafficker is dating a girl to win her trust before he tells her he is a trafficker or pimp. By the way, that's part of what Andrew Tate got arrested for. Y'all know that, right? Now the evidence is starting to come out. I told you guys I didn't know whether he did it or not, but now that we're starting to see the evidence and we're starting to see transcripts and we're starting to see what was said before when he probably should have been arrested before, when they did raids before, and they're starting to get into some of his equipment. I mean, that's what Hillary was. She was a bottom by definition. She knew that there were other bees or other prostitutes that were there. She was just the main one. She was supposed to hold it down. She made sure the other wifeys, right? They were wifeys. Monica Lewinsky was a wifey. I want you to get the code. See, because we don't speak code. But see, even quota, when you're arrested, see, you're capital, right? So they have to meet quotas because the corporations or the prisons at the end of the month, they require a certain amount of percentage of inmates. And if they don't reach that certain amount of percentage of inmates, then the state has to pay, which is you, the taxpayer. So the pimp corporation tells the state, remember, capitalism is defined as a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by private corporations for profit. Those private corporations always have an owner, and they do this, and they have the power rather than the state. That's the definition of capitalism. Capitalism. That's how capitalism is defined. If you were to Google the definition of capitalism, that's how it's defined. Oxford definition. You said bottoms get dominated and feel empowered by that domination. Yep. You the number one. I'm the only, they used to say it like this back in the day. I'm the only Negro in my job. I'm the only Negro who makes this much money. I'm the only Negro who has a business in the middle of town. I'm the only Negro. Now you would say, I'm the only black man. Now, I'm the only African American. I'm the first African American to do this and to do that. I'm the HNIC. There you go. Yeah. Right. This is the code. Right. This is the code. So we're going to be talking about this. This isn't the only time I'm talking about it. If you saying, can I see it? This stuff is going to pop up and I'm trying to show you. But the one thing I wanted to show you that's missing on here that would have been in Iceberg Slim's glossary is the word mileage. Mileage. How many miles you put on somebody. I see you, power and grace, right? Mileage, mileage. What is mileage? Mileage is just like on a car. You know, every car, once you get to a certain mileage, they expect certain things to just start breaking down, and it starts to become something where, do you value the car that much, or do you just go get a new car? Well, that's the way that they treat it, or even treat today. You know, the whores, and if there are corporate pimps, then that's the way they treat their corporate whores. How much mileage is on you, right? They know that after a while, and we'll talk about a story. Some of you probably heard Dave Chappelle said that he made it famous, where a lot of people started reading his book again. But you know, there's a lot of people who never thought about the fact that there's a lot of mileage on you. And when there's enough mileage, people start going crazy. See, when you see somebody at the post office, somebody goes postal, that was, they didn't make sure they were paying attention to the mileage. That's what that was. Somebody comes into your job, or somebody comes into your community, whatever, and they start acting a fool, start doing things. It's because their mileage was off. That man never been violent, never did this. All of a sudden, he strikes his wife. His mileage is off. See, he's living in a pimped out world, and sometimes even pimped by his own. See, a woman can be a pimp too. We're going to talk about this, but see, that mileage is off. See, that's, so we're talking about a book that's going to be our main reference point today. Is the book by Iceberg Slim called Pimp. You said you thought it was a term younger people use, yeah, but wifey is something that's been around. Wifey is something that a woman would call another woman back then. Now people say I'm his wifey, or that's my wifey. It's like saying that's my bitc. You know what? Or like, or like somebody saying, you know, I belong to him, or calling him daddy. You know, like we even use these terms in the bedroom, not knowing where they come from, because we've been pimped out so much, we've been over sexualized and overstimulated sexually so much, that literally we are using terms in there. Daddy, yeah, daddy, yeah, daddy. That's what the whore calls the pimp. And she longs. See, we talked about this verse. I will put enmity in between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. And then we went down some, right? And it said that you will always look for affection from your husband, but he will try to rule over you. It's a curse. It's a code. We got to break the code to be. We got to become code breakers to become curse breakers. See, if we're not careful, we're in relationships with pimps who have been pimped out. Remember the quote, right? That kind of like got my attention, kind of hurt my heart when I saw it. But look, believe the older pimp was telling Iceberg Slim, believe me, Slim, a pimp is really a whore who's reversed the game on whores. You said pimps words added to the dictionary. Why wouldn't they be? The greatest pimps are the ones who write the dictionaries. Because a pimp, catch it, a pimp is what? Is nothing more than a whore who's reversed the game on whores. In other words, they are people who've been pimped out, and they decided to become pimps themselves rather than remain the whore. There's only two ways out, three ways out technically. Either you're gonna die, either you're gonna get out the game, right? Or you're gonna become what you are tired of being, and you become the very thing that you say is negative. You talking about actual pimps? I don't even know. Did you make a comment, Big Smoker Jimmy? Oh, okay, you did that. You were one that made the comment. Okay, well, you know, if you want to be right, be right. I'm talking about righteousness. I'm talking about right, lawful standing. I'm talking about how to make sure we see this today. Okay, if you're saying that because daddy existed, the word daddy existed, sure. If that's your mindset, sure, okay. But we're talking about decoding things, because if you don't think that Bill Clinton is somebody's daddy and he wasn't running around with a bunch of hoes, then you're crazy. I won't say crazy certifiably, but that's crazy logic. That's insanity. If you think that it's okay to keep voting for pimps and the pimps don't do anything, but they keep promising you stuff, and then every time you say I'm done, they do something to get you to argue and get you off track and get you to forget that they were the very ones that put you in the situation in the first place. Well, then, I mean, I think context is something that we should make sure we verify versus just trying to do whatever we can to devalue what somebody has to say. That's the point. It's like when somebody was saying the other day, and we'll probably talk about this evening more, but when you hear people say, there were no slave ships and there were no this and there were no that, or people say there were all these slaves and this and that, and people always come from a context of only their little community or only their country, and they don't see how the game works worldwide. Right. But real talk, I don't think people comprehend this. I don't think people get this. It's like, even when it comes to slavery, see, you've been pimped so much mentally that you're trying to do this and whore out to this and support this system and support what the Americans say, who lied to you about your story anyways, and you want to listen to the very people who pulled the teeth out of your mouth to make dentures and stuff like that, acting like that was just one person who practiced that. George Washington was one of many. Remember, at least two people had to practice it because his dentist was the one helping them do it before they got to the ivory set, right? So all this stuff that you're talking, like, we had this weird thing that we do. But it's like, even if you think about it, even if you, let's say the person who says there was very little slavery that happened, like nobody really came over on ships, nobody really came over to America, everybody was indigenous, or there really wasn't as bad as what it was. If they took one woman away, or let's say it like this, because we can't really do it with one, but let's say they took 10 women away max from Africa, and they came to the United States of America. And these 10 women came to the United States of America, and they gave birth to children who gave birth to children that gave birth to children by taking 10 fruit, and those 10 fruit being able to have 10 seed that come into place, right? How many people did they actually steal? See, you think they stole one apple. You think somebody takes an apple from one state, plants it in another state, and therefore they only stole one apple. But from that one apple came many trees, which means that even if you only stole one apple, you still stole many apples. You stole generations of apples away. So even when people have the argument, see, we're so pimped, we're so messed up, we're so frustrated, we don't even realize we're being Georgian. We're going to talk about what that term means too. But we don't even realize you've been Georgian in a sense. Right? If they only took one apple and transferred it from one state into another state, and they grew apples for the rest, for generations, and millions of apples came from one apple, it means that millions of apples were stolen from where they belong. But see, we don't think about that. We think it matters where you're from, but once again, it doesn't matter where you're from, it matters who you are from. Right? It doesn't matter where you're from, it matters who you're from. So they stole they stole you from who you were from, and that's the problem. So now you've got millions of people, billions of people at this point, if we be honest about it, worldwide. But if you want to just talk about America, okay, hundreds of millions of people. Because remember, every year they say that we're supposed to be, what, 13% of the population. That gets us to around 45 million or so. So 45 million or so for generations have been displaced or were taken away from their culture, and therefore they themselves have been okay with the oppressor. They're okay with Stockholm syndrome. See, when you have the pimp code, you got to comprehend that the pimp is looking for people who don't know who they are, or feel like they have something great going on. They're pretty, they're valuable, they have all these things, but they need love. They need something that establishes them as more than what they are. And so you run game on them. And when you realize they'll listen, you don't mind breaking up families. Pimps do that. We're going to talk about this stuff. Yeah, you look for those who have been traumatized, and you look to see if you can hurt them further. See, hurt people, and hurt people also know the language of hurt. They need validation, right? Yeah, see, hurt people hurt people. How you doing, Billy Ray? And hurt people therefore know how hurt people operate. A hurt person looks for people that are hurt in order to be able to find somebody who is vulnerable enough so that they can take their hurt out on them, or hang around them while they continue to hurt them. How you doing, Sister Beverly? See, like this is stuff that's there. So there's a pimp code. And we would be remiss if we didn't admit that there's some nasty stuff. Somebody who knows the hurt game can hurt you better than anybody else. Somebody who knows what it is to be jacked up. See, that's why an Irish American is one of the most dangerous Americans, because the Irish people were enslaved before they started enslaving you. And so the Irish people who act like they no longer or they were no longer slaves, they're no longer slaves, and they never went through any kind of slavery. They will be the first people to tell you to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, even though Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told you that it's a cruel joke to tell somebody to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps with no boot. But they will tell you, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. We made it out, even though they didn't get treated the same. But we made it out. We did this. We did that. Okay, well, how you doing? Nigeria in the house. Or you're Nigerian. I don't know if you're in Nigeria, but welcome, right? So you have all these terms that are used, and they peep the mileage on you. How you doing reclaiming what's mine? They look for the mileage on you. A pimp looks for the mileage on you. And see, even before people, because people were talking about all this stuff. See, once again, I wish people would allow us to get into what we're talking about, because people were trying to make this whole thing, oh, well, you changed the definition, blah, blah. And so daddy doesn't mean that. Well, let's look at this. See, because this was somebody's daddy. Heidi Fleiss. Heidi Fleiss. She's a pimp. White woman. See, pimps come in many different sizes and shapes and shades. Pimping people in Hollywood, helping people like Epstein out, making sure little children are being pimped. And unlike many pimps, walking free. Well, I don't know if she's walking free at this point. I don't even know much about her story now. I know who she is though. That's a pimp. See, what happens is you get women who also have Stockholm syndrome. That's part of the game. That's part of the game. See, Iceberg Slim, when you read the story, you'll discover that Iceberg Slim, he has situations like, for example, there was one of his whores, one of his bees, she had decided, right? It really should be a woman, but you don't call a woman that. And guess what? Same thing, chattel slavery. You call them N-word females. You call them property. You call them chattel. You call them N-words, but you don't call them females. Matter of fact, Thomas Jefferson was one of the first people to say that these N-word females were unattractive. They were lazy. They were smelly. They were disgusting. But he was sleeping with them and having babies with them. Correct? Hey, how you doing, Sister Lori? Right? You gotta tell them that they're not valuable. You have to live as if they have no value. So Iceberg Slim is having a conversation with one of these women. He wouldn't have called her that, but one of these women that are getting ready to leave. She's like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm done. You know what? Because she's basically started off with like, Daddy. She tried to say it in a nice, warm way, right? Daddy, um, I haven't slept with you in a long time. Basically, like you ain't been up to my room in a long time. You coming? And he knows that she wants something from him, but he doesn't want to be Georgia. Now we're going to get into that term in a second, but Georgia basically means that you get sex before you get money, or you have sex with them before you get money. Sounds like a lot of these high value men, right? You're going to lay down, you're going to do this, you're going to turn the trick, you're going to go out there and do this, you're going to make sure you turn off your Instagram, you're going to make sure that you bow down to me, you're going to make sure that you uplift me, you're going to make sure that you stay home, you're going to make sure that you do whatever I say, and then I'll give you sex. Because even the pimp understands the game. The pimp comprehends that the man's number one and number two need is respect and sex. And he also comprehends that the woman's number one and number two need is what? Security and affection. He gives her a false sense of security by saying, if you run away from the plantation, I'll make you can't make it without me. And then guess what? I'll give you just enough affection to keep you around. It's a pimp mentality. And even if you want to talk about Kevin Samuel, and I won't go digging up somebody's grave, but even if you talk about Kevin Samuel, remember he was in the church. This thing don't go past your religiosity or your mindset. So this is a chattel slavery mentality. This is a mentality going back to people who built empires upon pimping people out. How you doing, Shiso Israel? Like this is a mentality. This is a spirit, if you will. This is a pneumatical thought. This is a psychology. That's what we got to talk about in this code breaker series, the pimp code. So Iceberg Slim. There's this girl who's like, you haven't slept with me that long, daddy, and you hadn't done this or whatever. And so he said, basically, like, I'm not sleeping with you, blah blah. He had just finished having a conversation with him, and the conversation basically went like this. Matter of fact, let me pull up a quote. If you've never read the book, or those of you who are familiar with the book, so you remember where this happens. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I think I got it. Hold on. So, right. So basically, it says this. It says a pimp is happy when his whores giggle. Why is a pimp happy when his whores giggle? Think about that. Today we're talking about the pimp code and the code breaker series. And what does it say here? It says a pimp is happy when his whores giggle. Why would they be happy when their whores giggle? Yeah, minimum amount of love, right? A pimp is happy when his whores giggle. Why? He knows they are still asleep. Yeah, she's unconscious to reality, right? The president giggles. I mean, the president is happy when you giggle. See, you don't want to use that term for love, but let's put it where it is. The president is happy when you giggle. The president is happy when you celebrate that he became president. Why? Because he knows that you are still asleep. Thanks for being part of the community, Lisa Scott. Appreciate it. You see what I'm saying? How about this? Your manager is happy when you giggle. Why? Because they know that you are still asleep. How you doing, Sister Rhea? And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Right? Your dare I say, some of us, your spouse is happy when you giggle because they know you are still asleep. Dare I say it? I hate to say it, but we're going to talk about this today. We're going to go through this stuff and show you how this stuff works. We're gonna literally look at a pimp telling you the game, how he got to where he is, how the average pimp does, what other pimps taught him, etc. We're going to talk about this stuff. See, we got to know this code. See, sometimes even your parents are happy when you giggle. Some of you been there, done that, right? Not even talking about sexually, just talking about in general, using you for things, doing things through you, living their dreams through you, having you become something you don't want to become. They are happy when you giggle, when you just, why? Because, and thank you for the compliment, Brian. Appreciate it. And how you doing? Is it Lexum? Lexum Lux, thanks for being part of the community. I don't know if I said that correctly. But they're happy when you giggle because they know you are still asleep. So a pimp is happy when his whores giggle. He knows they are still asleep. It says this: all whores have one thing in common, just like the chump humping for the white boss. It thrills them when the pimp makes mistakes. They watch and wait for his downfall. That part was really it. That part right there, Shabbos, when I read that part again, getting ready for today, I was like, oh my greatness. Because how many times, let's be honest, how many times do we sit there when you got your 9 to 5 and you giggle when your boss makes a mistake? Because in your mind, they shouldn't make mistakes. But it's because you have this relationship with them that is weird. You talk bad about them. You get in your little groups, you get in your circles, right? You get in your circles and you start having these conversations. Matter of fact, there's a term for it, right? That in that little glossary we were looking at, there's a term for it actually. I'm sorry, I gotta find it. I gotta find it. Uh-oh. I thought it was on here. I know there's a term for it. Maybe it's not on here. I thought it was called something circle. I can't remember. Okay, I don't see it. Maybe somebody else can see it on here. Some on here. I thought it was something circle. Maybe it's something I'm thinking of that's not on this list, right? But basically, there's a term for it. Some people even call it like a stable circle or something. So I think some people even call it a pimp circle or something like that. Basically, there's a term for it to where you literally get together in little circles and you just kind of talk bad about the massa, or you talk bad about the pimp, or you talk bad about the person who's in charge, who's in control. And but see, so many times, and you know why you do that? Because you know that these people are in charge and this and that, and so you giggle and you make fun of them. Why? And you can't wait for them to fall. You can't wait for them to meet their demise. Not water cooler, even though that's I guess that's modern terminology we would use. But it'll come to me if we need it, it'll show up, right? But long story short, you got to see what's going on. Like, once again, they have set this thing up to where there's pimps and whores. And watch this once again. Remember, we just talked about the quote that says that a pimp is nothing more than a whore who's reversed the game on other whores. They were once you, and now they found out how to make you become what they once were and keep you there. How you doing, Sir Stephen? But because of that, a pimp is also the loneliest, and I'm just quoting here. A pimp is the loneliest bastard on earth. He's got to know his whores. He can't let them know him. He's got to be God all the way. I'm just quoting here. I'm gonna quote again, right? This is Iceberg Slim talking, not Kofi talking. This is Iceberg Slim. Let's say this again. A pimp is the loneliest bastard on earth. He's got to know his whores. He can't let them know him. He's got to be God all the way there. See, that's why we talk about these terms. The difference between Elohim and God. God is whatever you want it to be. And so you can only present certain things about yourself. That's why they had to change the story. They had to change your story. They had to teach you his story. His story is something that allows you to not really know him. And then he tells you that he knows you. And he gives you his story about you. So therefore, he knows you, but you don't know him. Now, the Most High says, I want you to know me all the way, and I don't want you to know them. I want you to know yourself, and I want you to know me, and I want us to be married in this thing. But see, when you deal with that, the reverse of it says what? You got to not know yourself. I will tell you who you are. I will make you who you are. I will know you. I will know your love languages. I will know how you speak. I will know what men and women want. I will know your most basic necessities. I will know you, but you will never know me. There's a whole song, right? Right? What is it? If you don't know me by now, you will never, ever, ever know me. If you don't know him after all this time, right? If you don't know him after all this time, you'll never know. If you ain't studied him after all this time, you'll still be pimped. Now, I know that's not exactly what the song was saying, but I'm just trying to get you to think about it, right? You don't recognize that they've studied you. See, when we were talking about the mileage earlier, hallelujah. We were talking about the mileage. Somebody gonna get this and start breaking this code, right? We were talking about the mileage earlier. When it comes to the mileage, have you ever studied what a mortgage means? Have you ever looked up a mortgage, what it actually means? A death note? Come on. What else? Anybody ever thought about the word mortgage? I'll give you a little hint. Mortgage. What is a mortgage? A mortgage. A dead loan can become a payment until death if you're not careful, for sure. I think it's Aisha, right? Aisha wins. At first, I was trying to call you Aicha. It's Aisha wins, right? A mortgage is when somebody gauges your mortality, a mortality gauge. Compound word. It's mileage. They've studied you. They studied what the average person is. They've studied the people that they want to be in certain classes. And they've said most people will be, when it comes to a mortgage, we've gauged their mortality. They probably won't be able to start paying on a mortgage until a certain age. You know, back in the day, they might think probably like not till 40, 50. So we know they're paying for like 30 years. Maybe they'll be able to pay it off before they die. Maybe they won't. And if the mileage starts messing up, right? If their mileage is getting low, if it looks like they're about to break free from the system and finally be able to have that burning party where you burn your mortgage papers because now you got the deed, well, they say, okay, well, what we'll start doing is we'll start doing stuff like we'll make it a little tougher. We'll make it tougher on the children coming behind them, and they'll start taking out second mortgages. And if somehow they live through the second mortgage, maybe we'll take out the third mortgage. And I get it. If you can do it young enough or if you can pay it off fast enough, it actually might be valuable for you to do that, to be able to use your equity to be able to get other stuff, right? Proverbs chapter 1, verse 3, as much things that people quote about Proverbs, and they ever tell you that Proverbs has a lot to do with equity. But because we don't care about culture and the code, we don't say it. But see, they know what they're doing. They gauge your mortality. They've gauged your mortality on a 9 to 5. They know that the average person cannot work any more than 40 years. 40 years, 40 hours a week. The average person will begin to get to the end of their mileage. They will begin to lose it. We even have these terms. We don't think about it. Monday is the beginning of the week. So Monday, I start this thing off. Okay, I'm ready to go. I've recharged. I had some time off, right? But by Wednesday, and I know everybody is a little different in this, but just hear what I'm saying. Monday, I'm going to start. And then Wednesday is hump day. What is that? Okay, I don't really like this, but I've gotten past the hump. Okay, we're over the halfway point. I can see the finish line. And by Friday, man, if I'm ready to go. I'm just looking at the clock at that point. It's Friday. Like, I'm just looking for somebody to say I can go, right? My work is going to be kind of finicky at that point. They've gauged your mortality. The end of the mileage, right, is the weekend. They know that if they don't let you go, you're going to start talking back, just like the woman was talking back to Iceberg Slim. Because she asked for Iceberg Slim to sleep with her. He said, I'm not sleeping with you, this and that, or whatever. He said, with this quote that we're talking about, when they started giggling, this leads to the next part of the story, to where she asked to sleep with him. And now Iceberg Slim is in a position to where if he sleeps with her, but she ain't gave him no money yet, then he looks bad. See, remember, a pimp of any value has to make sure he gets value first, what he deems to be value. Then maybe every once in a while, when it looks like she's subservient, or it looks like she might break away if she doesn't get the affection, because and all the stuff she's getting, she's having sex. She's what they call turning tricks. She's having sex with all these different men. However, she's not getting it from the one person she's looking for it. And so she was asking for him to give her affection before he knew he had studied her, before he knew that she really needed the affection, before she's going to walk away. So then she tested him. And by the way, brothers, especially husbands, because there's a difference between a husband and a man. Husband is another level of man, right? And so husbands, hear what I'm saying. Your wife is actually in her to test you. But see, the pimp studies it in a perverted way. Your wife is supposed to every once in a while try you to see if you live what you say. She's supposed to. She's supposed to say, hey, wait a minute. You said that we were going to do this. Why aren't we doing this and this and it? Because she's a multiplier. When you give her a vision, she's going to start talking about it. You talking about a vision that's going to help your family. She starts talking about a vision that's going to help the block. You start talking about a vision that's going to help the block. She's going to start talking about a vision that helps the city. You start talking about a vision that's going to help the city. She's going to start talking about a vision that's going to help the state. She can't help but multiply whatever you give her. So you got to be careful that you give direction carefully, because she's going to lay down the law. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8, husbands give direction, but fathers give direction, mothers lay down the law. So whatever you give as direction, it better be something that's going to be something vision oriented, mission oriented, because if she's in submission, she's never in submission, she's in submansion. And so if you're not careful, brother, you're going to start giving her stuff thinking she submit to you. But when you start speaking mission, it clicks in her that we are going to get this mission done no matter what. We're going to turn $1 into 15. We're going to turn 15 cents into $1. Right? So be careful when you're giving unrighteous suggestion, because if she realizes that you really don't have no mission, she's going to start challenging you, and she's supposed to. Before you have children, she's supposed to test and see if you're ready for a spiritual daughter, and to make sure that you treat her well and to lift her up. See, before you start having physical children, can you do it right by her? That's why before you find a wife, you're supposed to make sure you're qualified as a husband and you know what a qualified wife looks like before you get married. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. See, this pimp code, but you've gone in with a pimp code that has perverted it. So see, this girl right here, who was with Iceberg Slim at the time, she starts challenging him. She starts saying, oh, you ain't doing, she's doing what she's supposed to do. She starts saying stuff like, you know what am I spending all this time doing this for? Why am I sitting here smelling real bad? right? Because they're going in cars and going in corners. They don't have any time to be able to go and take showers and stuff. You can smell. That's why there's even things called whore baths and stuff. And people say you smell like a whore. You can smell when somebody's been doing that because they don't get to clean themselves, right? They don't get to clean themselves. The word clean, by the way, even in Greek, hygienos, but even for us, clean, it means to be lawful or to be legal. They don't even get to clean themselves. So you can even smell it off of them. So she said, why am I smelling like this? Why am I sitting there going through this? Why am I doing this? And you won't sleep with me. In other words, all these people that I'm sleeping with, they don't even matter to me. I'm only sleeping with them because I'm doing it because I'm trying to be submitted to the mission. I could care less about you. I thought it was about you, but I wanted to be in the mission. I wanted to be in the mission. She started arguing mission. She didn't recognize this, but that's what happened. She was arguing mission. Hey, I don't feel secure in this. I'm sitting up here doing all this stuff, putting my life on the line, thinking you will secure me. You won't secure me. I'm now not only will you not secure me, but you won't even give me affection on top of that. Hmm. That's what she was saying. She's having an argument with him. They had giggled at him, by the way, because he had said, "Why is it smell? Why y'all smell so bad?" Remember, I said a pimp is happy when his whores giggle. He knows they're still asleep, right? But all whores have one thing in common, just like the chumps, humping for the white balls. It thrills them when the pimp makes mistakes. They watch and wait for his downfall, right? He had messed up, and in their mind, they're submitted to the mission. At the same time, though, they know that this dude, if they could do anything to break away from them, that there's something deep down inside that says, "I would break away." Right? How you doing, brother Frank? So he says all these different things. I'm sorry, all these things are going on, right? So you had this conversation going. She says, "Why am I doing it? You won't give me affection. You won't lay down with me, this and that, or whatever." And so what does he do? He knows he's being tested. So what does the pimp do now? We're on YouTube as well, right? YouTube, Facebook, podcast, sometimes IG, sometimes very little on Twitter, right? But you yeah, so he's having this situation. What do I do? Because watch this. The other wifeys are watching. The other people in the stable are watching. The other women are watching. If I don't handle this one correct, the other ones might think they can come back. See, everybody's watching. How do I handle this person? How do I discipline her in this way? Because sometimes we think discipline is always they beat you, right? And how you doing, Sister Deja? But he's trying to figure out how do I handle this in front of everybody else because she's challenging me. So he's quiet the whole time she's going off. And then he answers her, he responds. He says, "You think I care?" He says, "You think I care about all this stuff or whatever?" I can't say exactly what he said. You can go read it for yourself or listen to the audiobook or whatever. But he says, "You think I care about all this?" He says, "You think I care when a bee decides that she want to go ahead and leave?" He's like, and matter of fact, I celebrate it. You know why he said he celebrates it? He said, "I celebrate it because it means that now it's time for another bee to take her place who's ready to be down for this for life. I honor when the bee leaves so that somebody else who's worthy of this position comes into place." Says it in front of everybody else. In other words, you a dime a dozen. Matter of fact, you a dime a trillion. You a fraction out here. You're not anything important. That's what he said, right? If you can be replaced, who cares? Right? Stockholm syndrome. He knows. He studied. Once again, the pimp studies the horse. Remember the quote. See, we got to read this. Let's read this together. Let's make sure that we're doing this correct, right? I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me make sure I got the right. I might have missed. Oh no, it might be in the same quote actually. Oh yeah, a pimp is the loneliest bastard on earth. He's got to know his whores. He can't let them know him. He's got to be God all the way. He knows them, but they don't even know themselves. They don't even know what's coming next. They're in Stockholm syndrome. Don't even know it. You can be in Stockholm syndrome and not even know it. You can be part of something and not even know what's going on. You could be worshiping something and not even know what you're worshiping. You're submitted to a mission thinking that you're looking up to a man, or in submission, thinking you're looking up to a woman. But there's a mission that's bigger than you. They're using the same mindset we've been talking about, the same thought process, but they have it tailored towards evil. So he says, look, man, you think, he's like, what you think this is? You think I can't do this without you? You think that if you leave, I can't just get somebody else? Matter of fact, since you want to leave, you're not even worthy of the affection that you're asking for from me. How you doing, Sister Sandra? He's saying you're not even worthy of the affection you're asking me about. You're not even worthy of the conversation that you want. You're not even worthy of the security that you want. He says, so you can go ahead and go. She talked about she was going to get on the train. I forget to where. He's like, you can go ahead and go. I'll help you. And all the other girls get into a car. It says he watched as she got ready, as her shoulder, it said he studied her body language after that. Her shoulders slumped and her head went down and she walked inside. She thought that she was, by asking for affection, she would get what she was asking for. The pimp knew she was asking for affection, but he realized her mileage wasn't up yet. Now he's traveling and he's trying to drop the other women off. And then he's going to come back to her last because he said, I'll help you. And he picked, and when he gets to her room, she has her bags packed. And he says, he realized that this was, she was ready to do this all the way. She was ready to bluff all the way. She didn't really want to go. He saw once her shoulders went down, he studied her. He said, don't black people hate slavery? I think everybody hates slavery, Jason. Matter of fact, if you're a modern day slave, you pay taxes, right? Because anybody who owes debt is a slave, and anybody who's a slave is in debt by definition. So we're trying to teach something bigger than just black or white right now. But if that's all you're looking for, maybe you should argue with somebody else who cares about that argument. If not, we usually identify people. We usually say stuff like hello. So I don't glorify pimping, but people who are being pimped from pulpits, or being pimped by politicians, or being pimped by all different types of stuff, I think you should. I think we should discuss it. But thank you for coming on and saying, "Don't black people hate pimping?" What does that even have to do with what we're talking about? But nevertheless, right? So you can see that even somebody with a pimp mindset comes in with Stockholm syndrome. I'm going to defend the massa who doesn't do anything for me. Can't even see that I'm not your adversary. And if I become yours and we're walking down the same path, we should agree with each other as quickly as possible to ensure that we can get out of this thing. But that's the problem. You've been pimped. Right? So the other girls are getting dropped off at their places that they stay. He goes back, he gets her, he sees she's got her bag. They're sitting in the car. She's not saying anything. He doesn't say anything. He literally said, as they were traveling, he said he was turning the pages of the pimp guidelines in his mind. Right? There's a code. He was turning the pages of the code, trying to figure out how we going to do this, how we going to get past this. Hey, how you doing on the way? He's saying, how am I gonna, what is it that I'm gonna say to be able to make sure that I can get her or whatever? And guess what? He couldn't find out anything. He thought it was over. He was prepared to do what was necessary, even though he felt like he was going to lose her, because, as Willie Lynch would say about us, that we represented valuable economics, or they would say good economics. So he knew he was about to leave something that was going to be economically sound for him and mess him up. And he knew that she could still turn tricks. She still has some mileage left on her. So he's trying to figure out what to say. He can't figure it out. But he's like, hey, it's better overall to let this girl go, so that when the next girl comes in and starts acting crazy, everybody remembers Daddy will let us go. How you doing, Minister Sharon? If we're not careful, if we talk about this, the boss will let us go. If we're not careful, if we don't make sure that we do this, if we don't make sure that we tap dance, if we don't make sure we soft shoe, and we don't make sure we Bojangles out here, boss will let us go. So we just got to be quiet in here. If we mess around with the COs while we're in prison, they'll beat the mess out of us to death. And then the next person will come in and fill up the bars again. Yes, I am. Right. So they knew this. They knew this. Right. This is the mindset of a pimp. This is why we got to learn this code and get out of this. That they knew. They study us. They're aware of the fact that we leave. How you doing, Sister Shima? Bakwata out to everybody. Thanks for being on. We appreciate you. Thank you for your likes, for your shares, for your gifts, for your comments, for your love, for your support. Those who do things behind the scenes. We appreciate you all. Yeah. Would you say this is all relevant to understanding the mindset? Most definitely. You know, so we have to be in this position where we recognize and realize what's going on. And so he knew they know that you got malice, right? And they know that you can be replaced, and they know that you will be replaced, and they know that you think that you can't be free of it. You can't become private. You can't break free of a wicked system. You have to be your straw man for the rest of your life. They believe that about you, and you believe that about you. You've fallen for the hype. A lot of us have. I won't say everybody, but a lot of us have. We've fallen for this hype. We believe the hype. We believe that there's nothing else. That's why you hear people say, "Well, if you think America's so bad, go back to anywhere, go anywhere else in the world and see if it's better than here." Man, shoot, you're talking to somebody that's traveled. I already know that that's a lie. Can't no place in America mess with Lagos. Go back to Lagos, Nigeria. You can't mess with that at all, right? Like I've been there, done that. Y'all ain't messing around with with the history of Rome, even with your own Eurocentricity. I know about Septimius Severus. If I go over to London, if I go over to England or whatever, I already know Septimius Severus and what he did or whatever I wanted to study and look there. Right? Ain't nothing in America you can do. Well, I take that back, but people don't know about pyramids, like pyramids in Illinois, pyramids in Georgia, pyramids, in South America, in Central America, etc. But right outside of Cubano on the seafloor, pyramids there. But you do some travel and you realize real quick, oh, y'all can mess with that. Look, I've been to the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is like that. But go ahead and look at some of the mountains of Japan, right? But people will tell you that, oh, well, go somewhere else. Shoot, I've seen third world nations right here. Go to Georgia and look at places where people are living with no roofs on their buildings. Oh, no problem, Warrior. Thank you for being on, right? Hoodoo Warrior, right? Like go there. Go to California and go down stretches where you have for miles and miles and miles people are living in tents because they can't afford the stuff. I was talking to some people the other day. I didn't even realize because I'm not really in tune like that because I'm not in that area that much. But I didn't realize that you go to places in New York and places in Massachusetts and places in all these places, and people talking about rent going up to $8,000 a month. Like we thought it was crazy in DC, in Chocolate City, when they started having apartments for like 3,000, 4,000 a month over where the baseball stadium is. We thought that was crazy. Where Nationals Park is, we were like, that's wild. Surely people won't fall for that. I thought it was wild living in a little studio, paying 1,800 to 2,000 for two people to live in. Thought it was wild, but we were like, hey, it's a nice place to be. But that's a lot of money. No, right? But once again, see, we don't know the game. Yeah, like taxes beat most people's mortgage. And so here's this girl this close to being able to leave, right? Yeah, traveling will break that suspension of disbelief for real, for real. You go somewhere else and see how they live. And you keep hearing all this stuff about what it is. See, in the United States of America, watch this. I, I could never leave Solomon, my son. I could never leave him anywhere. Like I can't just go somewhere and be like, hey, even if it's my own family. So it's very rare I can just be like with my son, yo, just go ahead and play. Go wherever you want, do whatever you want to do. Right. But when I go back to Swi Nation, or what you would call, when I go back to Swi or go back to my tribe, or that part of me, that particular tribe, and I go back to Ghana, like we'll be out in the middle of the woods with people who are living in different places and stuff like that. But in the woods, stuff like that, you would think like that's scary in the United States of America, like to be out there, it gets dark. There's these homes, you see lights and stuff, but that's over in there, like they children play outside. And I'm freaking out when I'm seeing it. Why are you letting your child? Why are you doing it? First time going back, right? So why are you doing it? Why are you letting your child? Well, please don't do this. Please don't do that. And they're looking at me like, what's wrong with you? See, they've been pimped in different ways over there, but that's not the area that concerns them because the people over there, they don't have the same governing body. So over there, it wouldn't make sense for anybody to even think about taking a child like that. But over, in the West, human trafficking is the standard, isn't it? In the West, you've got to be afraid. In the West, I got to make sure my son is homeschooled, and is sheltered from everything I can shelter him from. I've got to be the one to teach him about slavery, because they'll try to make him feel like a slave. I've got to be the one to teach him about his story, because they have their own story for him. I've got to be the one to, but yeah, you go back home. They'll make you feel, oh yeah, just go back somewhere and go anywhere else. Look, if I wasn't called to do what I'm doing and make sure I'm helping people in this country, I promise you, I've been gone. Like all I need, like y'all think $1 million will get you what you need in the United States of America, and it's true. Real talk. If I had $1 million and I went back home, that million is like 4.5 million. I would be straight. I'd get land. I'd have stuff, and we still gonna do it, right? But we're gonna do it here first. But real talk. But people go, oh, just go back. It's like travel some, bro. Travel some, sis. Before you keep talking, our own people saying ignorant stuff. When I go back, talking about, oh, you know what? You gonna go back there? There's lions and tigers and blah blah. Man, these people ain't. If they've never been to a zoo, they've never even seen those animals. You know how vast Africa is. You know how many United States of Americas could fit in Africa. You know how many tribes and cultures and traditions, and yet they still treat each other with respect, while y'all are sitting there talking about how they sold each other into slavery, but they have more respect for each other than you do over here. But people's first response is go back, but it's because you've been pimped. Stockholm syndrome. You believe what the oppressor tells you. That's why I said even before, when I hear people saying all this stuff, well, we went to the new thing now that I've been seeing people do. We went to the American blah, blah, blah. And American blah, blah, blah tells us that there were really only this many people. So how could there be millions of slaves if there were only this many people in America? Look, time out, time out. Like they're lying to you. Number one, when you look on those books, remember, black people are not even considered to be people at that time. Native people are not considered to be people, which means that you're not even dealing with real percentages. Stockholm syndrome, the pimp. And we're not careful. We'll start talking. We're trying to get out of the land of our captivity by listening to the captive. Malcolm X once told us, he taught us, hey, when you have to ask the person who enslaves you, when you have to ask your oppressor for a job, you're in bad shape. Right? If you have to ask the people who've been oppressing and been lying to you for help, you're in bad shape. And if you're not even going to look outside of that, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're not going to look, while they're telling you there's no way all these people could have been traveling. By the way, traveling here before slavery, you think that a lot of people just came here after slavery or were here already and didn't know any of this stuff and we were just separate. But why don't you go to Illinois and go to a pyramid that has Kemetic writing and even Hebrew writing on it? It even has European writing on it, which means that other people do about it. But you think that what somebody else is doing, the pimp is telling you, you think you're supposed to listen to it, even though you're this close to freedom. Just like the girl was. You said pimping it ain't easy, but it's necessary. It's necessary for those that want to control you. But you can get out of pimping at any time, because even Iceberg Slim, he gets out of pimping at the end of his life and becomes what he calls a square. But then he tells his mama when he goes to visit her grave, he says, "You be proud of me, mama. I become a square." He says, "Think about that, right? Ice, somebody named Iceberg now has a warm heart." I think that's in chapter 1, or maybe in the introduction. So what am I trying to say? Listen long enough. Listen to me. I'm saying what I'm saying is that we got to go through the pimp code because people are being pimped. And if you want to stop being pimped, you got to figure out how the pimp thinks. If you want to stop being pimped by a president, think how presidents think. They studied you. Remember, right? They studied you, but you don't study them. They tell you your story, but you don't know your own. They tell you their story, but you've never taken time out to study it. They know more about your blood type, but you don't even know what E1B1A is or E1B1B is. Don't even know what relevance that is. Don't even know what country that means. Don't even know that most of us have that over here in the United States of America, if that's where you stay. You see? How do we talk about capitalism, a system in which politics and economics is used to control trade and industry? The trade industry is willed about for corporations for profit and not the state? How do we talk about racism? Racism, literally a competition, a system of competition that became about color when people like Carl Linnaeus and Christopher Columbus and the Pope and Charles Darwin wrote certain rhetoric. Right? How do you talk about feminism when we don't even know that there's a difference between feminism and womanism? And feminism, womanism has something to do with colorism. How do we know about all these systems if we don't know these pimps and what they do? You got the Willie Lynch. You got Willie Lynch, and even if you don't believe he was real, you should at least look at the document as real because everything in the document is everything they did to your people. But we don't know where we come from. We don't even know where it is. You don't even know about curse. Somebody says curses, you roll your eyes. Oh, here comes somebody talking about this again. But you don't even know like how to read the story of mankind and see people like Alawada Equiano or Dr. Carter G. Woodson or read some of what Huey P. Newton wrote out, or to be able to make sure that you were listening to what it actually is to be a freedman, and to see that the freedman, for freedmen, the reason why you got for a little bit of time that you got reparations, you got it from General Sherman, not from President Lincoln, and you got it from four freedmen who were four pastors who said, we don't want what you want to give us. We want to be able to teach ourselves, learn for ourselves, and do for ourselves. And General Sherman, who didn't even like black people, but wanted to see the Confederacy die, said, you know what, that works best for both parties. I like that. And you're not asking us to keep giving you. We'll just go ahead and give you land. So you think reparations is give us money, give us land, give us, no. Reparations was give us land and move. You think reparations is we need you to keep doing it. Or you think reparations is handed to us. But they demanded that, look, if you're going to give us anything, don't give us any money, don't give us any jobs, don't give us any part in government. We don't care about all that. They were freedmen. They were not even considered to be Negroes. They were not considered to be blacks at that point. Those ancestors you're looking for reparations, you need to start looking for what freedmen deserve, because freedmen are the ones that entered into the contract. But see, we're not even thinking about that. We don't care about law. We don't care about private law, public law, procedural law, remedial law, law of attraction, law of first mention, kingdom law, marital law, universal law, natural law, all these laws that exist, substantive law, common law of equity, admiralty law, maritime law. It escapes us because we think as oppressed, because that's what the oppressor wants you to think. And anytime somebody says, just like Malcolm X said about the house Negro and the field Negro, somebody comes to the house Negro and says, let's leave, let's separate. You say the same thing that the slave or the house Negro said on the plantation. Leave, separate from America, from this neighborhood. Where are you gonna find a better job than this? That's what you say. Where you gonna get better clothes than this? Where you gonna get a house like this? But they did the same thing to the slaves on the plantation. They had them afraid to run away, and if they ran away, they said they were crazy. They called it drapetomania. Drapetomania. Look it up. D-R-A-P-E-T. I'm sorry. D-R-A-P-E. D-R-A-P-E-M-A-N-I-A. Sorry. Drapetomania. Right? Literally saying that if you wanted to get off the plantation, something's wrong with you. Beat you to the white meat. What does beat you to the white meat means? Beat you to the white meat literally means that as we beat you to the white meat, this is what their psychologist said. Their father of modern psychology said, if you beat a slave to the white meat, see, the slave is crazy and he's weird and he's not moral, he's morally bankrupt, all that. He has no history. So he's become black. By the way, that's what Mormons go by. You can be white and delightsome. That's where that comes from, right? That same mentality. So they said he's already crazy. He's a coward. He's dumb. He's stupid. He's slow. So if you beat him and the white meat starts to show, it means that you're purifying him. Thank you, Drapetomania. Drapetomania. I was struggling. I'm sorry. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. But look that up. Look up the Casual Killing Act, where it was okay to kill children because the women who were married to the slave masters, sometimes passing for white or just outright white, they had to watch their husbands rape these women that they said were not even human beings, meaning they had to watch their husbands have babies with beasts. They believed it to be bestiality. So they would get upset when they saw that their husband face was imprinted upon these children. And so they would beat them to death. And so to make sure that these women were covered lawfully and legally, what did they say? What did the pimp do? The pimp said, hey, I got to make sure my bottom's in line. She's starting to lose her balance. She's starting to kill these babies. What do? Hey, it's okay if you kill them. No problem, baby. See, just because they didn't say pimp and B and bottom and wifey and stable, just because they didn't use those terms. By the way, they did use the term stable back then. But just because they didn't use all these terms, right? Yeah, you can throw the babies to gators, gator bait, right? Like they like these people that are losing their mileage. Like these poor white folk, they're thinking that they were told that like this slavery thing is going to work for everybody, but they trying to get into this capitalism thing, even though capitalism still allows slavery. But we just down south, we want them to do what they do. So you know what? We'll go ahead and let them throw babies out to alligators, these black babies out there, because at least they'll have some control and they realize they're better than somebody else. And so, hey, at least I'm not the person being thrown to the gator. They pimped everybody. They had to pimp the white mind, is what we call it white by colonial or social construct. They had to pimp the white mind just as much as the black mind in order to make sure that everybody kept bowing down to it. They had to. You know, go to Belgium. I've been there, done that. Look at the cartoons they still show their children. Black babies literally put in tubs and brought out. The tub water is now black, and so is the tub itself, but the baby is white, at least for a little bit, until the baby slowly but surely becomes black again, because surely you cannot escape your blackness. All right, Sister Helen, thank you. And be safe out there. Surely you cannot escape your blackness because your blackness is a curse. Oh, and by the way, Belgium, the same place that you have Leopold the First, Leopold the Second, Leopold the Third, Leopold the Second being the most monstrous, killing way more of us than any than the Holocaust, or what you call the Holocaust, because there are many Holocausts, but the Holocaust killing way more than any number they're trying to come up with now to tell you is there. And I'm not saying the Holocaust and what the Jews went through, they should have went through. That's evil. It's disgusting, right? What I'm telling you is though you'll hear about that one, but they don't tell you about Leopold and what he did to the Republic of Congo. And how when Lumumba got into office and it was time for them to switch power, when he gave his speech, they were waiting for him to kiss the behind of Leopold III when he went out, but he didn't. And Leopold III got upset, got with the CIA. They came in, they killed him. They put one of their puppets in charge, and we've been dealing with problems there ever since. There were human zoos in Belgium. There were human zoos in New York City. There were human zoos in Florida. There were human zoos in England, London, England, Mario, England. There were human zoos in places in Africa where people started coming and making Negro land and stuff. There were human zoos all over the place. They used to, matter of fact, I'm not sure if the one in New York is the place, but they used to foul the teeth. There were human zoos in Canada, right? Human zoos in Brazil. And they used to foul the teeth. Well, if you're telling me that it's human zoos, okay, fine. But I'm telling you, if you want to go up, there was all races, all races, all races. Okay, fine, all races. It was evil, however they did it to, right? But there's specific ones where they had African tribes there. The one in New York, African tribe. The one I'm talking about in London, African tribe. The one that was in India, actually, I don't know if India was African tribe as much as it was class tribe. So that one might be a little different. But they had these places, and they sometimes there was one guy, I can't remember his name on top of my head, where they found his teeth so that it would look like shark teeth, like Shark Boy. Even if y'all seen uh the guy who was in the vampire series as an older, like as a young adult, and before that he was in Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and the guy who played that character, and they made his teeth in 3D look like a shark. That's what they did to the guy's teeth in real life. He ended up killing himself. And they just said, wow, animals, these animals might even kill themselves. Look at the mindset. The pimp has people sitting up there with Stockholm syndrome. Like this stuff I'm not telling you anything that you can't read for yourself. I'm telling you what you can read for yourself. Look it up for yourself. See, even in the story, there's something else that was there. Now, we can look at this as positive, of course, but also you got to think about the fact that this goes between positive and negative. Look at this quote right here. Um, After all, we are the absolute bosses of that whole theater and show in our minds. We even write the script. So always write positive, dynamic scripts and show only the best movies for you on that screen, whether you are a pimp or a priest. So you can look at this positive, which a lot of people do. Oh yeah, just only paint the positive. Only focus on the positive. Don't focus on the bad things. Why do you bring these things up? You can't change these things anyway. Blah, blah, right? Only bring up things that right. So bring things that are positive, and that's very motivational until you start realizing, well, if you're still doing very similar things today, are you telling me not to look at those things too and look at the connection and look at how we shouldn't get better? See, if you're not careful, the priest will tell you the things that make them look positive, but will never tell you the truth about the word of Yah. The guy's name is Otabinga. Okay, thank you for the reference point. Right. See, their whole thing is just I got to make it look as well as I needed to look. I needed to be like this. I needed to be like this. I needed to be like this. And of course, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss what these people have for you, or what they're doing to you, or you won't care because you've been taught what? Don't make a big deal. Massa gonna be upset if you makes a big deal. Don't do that. Don't do that. Massa gonna be upset. But I don't work for Massa. See, when you stop working for Massa, it's not a big deal anymore to talk the truth. But you got to find out how to separate from the system. See, you're trying to save a system that is doing exactly what it's supposed to. You cannot save something when it's achieving its goal. You can separate from it though. You said, Master, give me money to pay my bills. He sure doesn't. Right? That's where I gotten. See, if you got to depend on Master for him to pay your bills, then you're gonna have to dance. And I can't be mad at it. I did it. I'm not saying I didn't do it. And if emergency came, if my family had me to do it, unfortunately, I'd have to do what it does, take care of my family. But see, we worked out certain things in certain ways in certain systems to ensure that we don't have to go back that route. And I work harder for my family and for my community and for myself. I get money doing exactly this, literally. Right? We have nonprofits, we have organizations, we have even for-profit stuff that we do as far as natural health medicine, things like that. We work for ourselves. Right? I change lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. That means that worldwide, we make sure that we help people to be their best selves. We help people to get education without having to go into debt. We help people to learn what it is to make land. We help people to do things. And sometimes those people decide, hey, man, you helped me to do better in life. Let me go ahead and give a donation to you for what you do. And we made sure that before we left the system that we had our stuff together. We got land. We have a mindset. We have mindset change. And so we actually live what some people call below the poverty line. Yeah, because we don't have some of the expenses and we don't have to worry about certain things that other people have to do. We don't have to worry about, we know what a W8BEN is. We know how to make sure we're our best version of ourselves. We know how to make sure that we live private and not public. We make sure that we comprehend substantive law, which leads to, remedial law, procedural law, etc. We comprehend trust and LLCs and separate entities and things of that nature. We decided to separate from the system. How did Christ have money to pay people? People donated to him. He was a carpenter until he was 30 years old. 30 years old, he became a rabbi because in our culture, you cannot become a carpenter until you're 30 years old. So you cannot become a priest, excuse me, until you're 30 years old, or a rabbi, a teacher, a master, or a priest, if you will, until you're 30 years old. So he had to wait. That's why he got baptized at age 30. So up until then, yeah, he was a carpenter, did those things. But also remember, in Israelite culture, it's different. It's different. Because he would have been a carpenter because his father was a carpenter, sure, because that's what we do. We teach our sons ourselves, right? We don't send them to school. School is a new thing by the Rockefellers that everybody thinks you're supposed to go to become educated. See, but even in that, we become free from the system. Our child does not have to go to school. Our children don't. We've signed off on it, and we don't have an environment, or we're not trying to create an environment that says they don't have to. You said, but from what we know, he didn't have a wife or children, supposedly. Well, yeah, I don't believe that he did. That doesn't have anything to do with it. He freed himself. It's a different culture, too. So you think that Israel runs the same way that the United States does, but Israel runs like Rome. I'm sorry. Let me say that again. Now I'm all over the place. Let me slow down. We think that Israel runs like the United States because you don't know about kingdoms, right? We don't know about kingdoms. We don't care about law, even though you have to obey it somewhat. But we don't care about kingdom. We don't care about law. We think democracy. Even some people have fallen for saying that you believe in democracy, but democracy is not even written in the Constitution. And from what I've heard, I have not read all 50 state constitutions, but from what I've heard and from what I've read so far, I have not found the word democracy in any constitutions. Right? So even when you say you're in a democracy, not by law. Matter of fact, it's is either the third or the fourth president if you start with George Washington as your first president, because there were 8 before him. But if you start with George Washington as your first president, it's either the third or the fourth. I believe it's the fourth president. So what you have Washington, Adams. Why am I'm usually pretty decent with these terms. I must be tired or something. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, not Monroe is 5. who is for Madison. And Madison literally threw a fit one day and said, we got to stop telling people about democracy because people are going to think they're in a democracy legit if we don't tell them the truth. And we're going to have problems because of it. And here we are again being pimped and not realizing that you think that there's such thing as democracy, but it's not even in your law. It's like when you go to court and you say, we want to deal with police brutality. We're looking for somebody. Why won't anybody help us out with police brutality? There's no such law against police brutality. So you can't go into court asking about police brutality. Now you live in a republic though, and a republic is a kingdom. But you were told that you're against kings. That's what they told you. That's what they taught you in school, that George Washington was against King George. But George Washington, King George were boys. They fought, and then they became boys again. Both had wives that were brunette by definition, or what you call brunette, literally meaning back then. Look up the definition of brunette back then before they changed the definitions. A brunette was literally considered to be a woman that was that basically could pass for white or had negroid features. You said it's not a republic, it's an oligarchy. I get what you mean. You can say it's a Republican oligarchy, but let's be honest about it. It's oligarchy in the Constitution. I know what you're saying, how it operates as, and we could talk about that for sure. But even when you were a child, they told you, you pledge allegiance. This is where your allegiance lies. You pledge allegiance to the flag, that's the standard, of the United States of America. And you don't even know that the United States of America, after the 14th definition, you are not even a free sovereign person, but you are now a citizen of a corporation. But nevertheless, you pledge allegiance to the standard of the United States of America and to the republic and to the kingdom and to the republic for which it stands. Oh, well, not every republic had a king. Yes. In capitalism, he or she that has the most money is the king or queen. They make the decisions. That's why those people, you call them, what do you call these boosters and stuff that make all this money for you guys, that y'all call them, these fundraisers, that get presidents and mayors and governors, whatever you call those people that raise money, the same way that people raise money for your college teams that y'all like to watch. Those same people, they have laws on the books that say that the lobbyists, thank you, the lobbyists, they have laws in the books that the lobbyists have to have people represented whenever law is created. Did you know that somebody from the lobbyist organization has to be with them at the Senate, has to be in the Congress building, has to be with the House of Representatives, has to be in the White House, in the Oval Office. They have to be present at these meetings. That's why a lot of these lobbyists end up being the people who become part of the cabinet. And I don't care who the cabinet you're talking about. I don't care if you're talking about Biden or Trump or Obama or Bush or Clinton or Bush or Carter or whomever. I'm sorry, I skipped over Reagan, didn't I? Right? Whoever it is, they have to, by law, allow these lobbyists in because the lobbyists are the ones that tell them what they can do. Right? Real talk. Yeah, the national anthem, that's a doozy too, right? A lot of people just learned recently after the Kaepernick thing about the third stanza, right? But let's just be honest. How many people even know that there's no thank you very much. Thank you for the love, appreciate it. How many people know even that there is no building that's connected to the White House? Did you know that? Did y'all know that there's no building connected to the White House? You said shalom and peace, brother. At least on top, right? There's no building connected to the White House. Speaking nationality, self-sustainability, want to learn that? Yeah. And we got class sovereignty 1, sovereignty 2 getting ready to start on Monday. Wait a minute, but that's not true. Y'all just heard a statement I said. See how we don't even look for things. Some of y'all been there, don't even think about it. But I just said that no building, at least up top, is connected to the White House, but that's a lie. That's a lie. That there's no building connected. The only building connected above to the White House so that everybody can see it. They want everybody to see the connection is the Federal Reserve Building. Matter of fact, if you saw that movie, is it Olympus Falls or something like that? Whatever it is, the movie where they attacked the White House. I know they made like 2 different versions of that, or maybe even 3 at this point. I don't know, but when you look at that, right? When you look at that, that movie, you would discover that the building that the guy comes from. Remember, he worked for the Secret Service. President died. he ends up like going away from it, going away from the family, and they didn't really trust him, or it wasn't the president, whether his wife died, something like that, whatever it was. Yeah, his wife died. And then he comes over when all the shooting starts from that plane and everything, and they take over the White House, and he has to go in there. When all that happens, where is he? He's in the Federal Reserve building. He's in the Federal Reserve building. That's where he is, y'all. He's not far away. He's in the Federal Reserve building. That's where he is. Right? Right? That's where he is, y'all. He's where? He's in the Federal Reserve. So you missed it. They even showed you in the movie. They have to show you these things to make sure that you see it. They have to make sure that you, even if you don't look for them or you don't know what it is, everything always has to be shown to you by law. You know that's lawful, right? It's law. It's not lawful to say that somebody didn't have an opportunity to learn it. So they got to put it in a book somewhere, or they got to put it, on a sign somewhere. They have to have you quote it somewhere. They have to have you see it somewhere. But by law, you have to always have an opportunity to say yes or no to anything, which means if you decide not to study it, then by law, you've said no to it. Right? Every time that you got a shot, those who got vaccinated, by law that you were allowed to say, hey, I want to see what the side effects are. I want to read the paper that comes with it, because every type of medication lawfully has to come with something explaining what it says. So for those of you that took a vaccination or take any medication and don't look to see what it is, you are doing something that's not lawful. But or really you are, because at any time you should know that you can always ask, what's in what I'm eating? When it's injected to you, it's what's in what I'm eating. If they give you a cream, what's in what I'm eating? Because you are what you eat. So you have a right at any time, according to the Nuremberg Code, to say, what is this? I won't go any deeper because you two got upset with us last time. The World Health Organization got upset with us last time. We lost the whole channel because of it. But these are things that are there. See, the pimp doesn't want them to know. And so remember all that stuff I was talking about earlier now. Iceberg Slim is trying to drop this woman off. She's got her bags packed. She hasn't said anything. He hasn't said anything. And then she finally breaks. She finally breaks when they get over there. She says, Daddy, you really just going to let me get on this train, this and that or whatever? You just going to let me go? And then he says, look, what need? That's how he talks to her. That's how they talk to you. What need do I have for a B that's not going to be obedient and do this and do that? She's like, Dad, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure. I just want to please. I just want to be. He's like, no, you got to be with me. If you're going to be with me, he's like, you might as well leave, because I'm looking for somebody when they come to replace you, using the same language. He says, I'm looking for somebody who tried to replace you. What is it? Or no, when somebody does try to replace you, I'm looking for somebody who's going to be with me and be dedicated to me for life. Now, he knows mileage wise, there's no way she can even psychologically do that. But he's talking to her in these terms that he knows, even though she will break at some point, he's trying to just keep what's going on and get her back on track and get her to realize that you need to bow down. She's about to be free, but she was in love with her captor. She was this close. It even says that, like Mark chapter 12, verse 28 through 34, we like to read our Bible, but we don't actually care about what it says, or we don't really care about what it really means. So we talk about the Bible, but we don't really care about it. And so those of you who actually believe in the Bible, read your Bible, it'll bless you. Mark chapter 12, verse 28 through 34. What is the most important of all commandments? Hear, O Israel, Yahweh Elohim, Allah, and you must love him with all the heart, the soul, the mind, the strength. That's the first of all commandments. Second, like it is this, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. On those two, all the other commandments, they fall upon those. Right? That doesn't mean those are the only two. It means all those two. And if you do some research, Deuteronomy 6:4, Exodus 20, you'll discover that he put the 10 commandments together as well. Right? So he literally says those 10 commandments are the first, and he quotes Moses also, Deuteronomy 6:4. So what he says, basically all the other commandments that are there, that are written, all of them basically fall on those. Start following those and keep it going, is what he says. And the person who asked him was a Pharisee. They were a lawyer, and so they knew law. They knew biblical law. So they say, hey, he says, well said. He says, because to love Elohim with all the heart, the soul, the mind, and the strength, and then love your neighbor as you love yourself is better than all burnt offerings and sacrifices. And then Yahshua says something at the end that people didn't catch. And all this argument that you're talking about laws and this and that, and who's better, and religiosity, and I know it better. You missed something in all that he says. At the end, he says, you are not far from the kingdom of heaven. You're close, but you're not free yet. If you can start learning how law works, you're not far from it, but you ain't free yet. You got salvation. Salvation is a salvaging process, lawful. So here's this woman who's this close to being able to be salvaged. She's already peeped game and spoke some of the code. She spoke out of place. She's getting ready to be released because he can't. It would be wrong for him. It'd be bad for him if he had hit her. He even talks about this in the book. Had he hit her in the middle of the street when she started popping off, it actually would have made him look bad. He said, had he been younger at the time when it happened, when he was a younger man or a younger pimp, he would have handled it different. Just hit her, but see, hitting her while she's telling the truth, right, would actually mess it up. But see, if he let her go ahead and speak the truth and then makes her truth look like it's not truth, or he looks like he don't even care if it's true or not, because that's not what the mission is. Now now everybody's able to go, oh, okay, you know like, I thought that was true, I thought it was, but it didn't even move him, so it must not be true, because once again, that's daddy, that's Prezi, that's my president, that's my boss, that's who I bow down to, that's what I want to do. That's what I accept. That's my religiosity. That's what my mama did. That's what my daddy did. So daddy sat up there and said, even though you told the truth, I could care less. And I'm looking for somebody that's going to be on a higher level than you. So the truth don't even matter at this point, but they're not even seeing it because pimped. It's a wild relationship. Stockholm syndrome. So she's there and she starts saying, Daddy, why would you let me in? And he starts saying, look, I need somebody that's going to do what I tell him to do. If you're not going to do what I tell you to do, what's the point? Thank you. How you doing, Brother Turin? So if you're not gonna do what I tell you to do, what's the point? You might as well just go somewhere. I don't care about this. I don't care about you like that. You think I care about you like that? I'll find somebody else. I want somebody that's more dedicated, who's more deserving than you. I thought you were deserving, but you ain't deserving. And then he goes back to this statement of being Georgia, and we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. He goes back to basically, he's like, you ain't gonna Georgia me. In other words, basically, like, hey, I'm not gonna let you. I'm not gonna let you. Um, get sex from me, or get affection from me, or get any kind of humanity from me, and you holding out, because if she's gonna go on the train, see, he said he learned this when he was a young pimp. He said he learned that if a woman's gonna leave you, really, we're gonna get into this because we gotta get into his mindset. He learned really from his mama that if somebody gonna leave, it means that they got money to leave. Some women will just go, oh, I'm gonna leave, I don't care where I go. But usually, if you, once again, remember, what is a pimp? A pimp is nothing more than a whore who's learned how to turn the game on other whores. All kind of tunnels in DC. Hmm. So he himself was whored out. We're gonna talk about that. He himself was Georgia. We're gonna talk about that, right? But he said, so he says to her, he's like, I'm not gonna even address you. And why would I even try to hold somebody around if if they're gonna do what you do? But he says this to her, so he knows that. So this is what he says. He says, if you give me what you've been holding out on me, that scratch you've been holding out on me, scratch money, right? So if you give me that scratch you've been holding out on me, he says, I'll go ahead and let you come back. I'll take you back to the place that I've said you could live. If you give me that scratch, I'll let you come back. She reaches into her bosom and pulls out five bills, $500, which at the time, $500, right? 1940s, $500. Pulls out 500 and gives it to him. That's how much she had been either saving or relying about she was making, or whatever she had been doing there, right? She was getting to a place where she was going to be able to get out of the system. $500 would have went a long, long way back then, right? Especially you go to certain neighborhoods, $20 rent, you know, probably could buy some land, and or not probably could buy some land in certain places for about 500. Would have been free. Wouldn't have to worry about anything. Even if she had to start from scratch, at least she owned her own land. She could at least have her own food, whatever, or at least could pay rent for years and years and years and just take time out to be able to do what she was doing. Even if she wanted to continue in the same thing, she could be her own pimp, so to speak. Right? She ain't even have enough mindset to do something on that level. And I'm not saying she should have become that. I'm just saying she didn't even have a mindset to do that In her mind, oh, I don't want to be without daddy. She was attracted to the man. See, and that's perverted. Men and women, hear us clearly. We always say this. You're not called to be in submansion. You're not called to be in subwomanship. You're called to be in submission. Be mission oriented, and then you can't get pimped. If you get it to see, when you submit to a man, what is called submission, what happens is the man gives you a mission rather than it being a mission that's greater than himself. If you're in subwomanship rather than submission, it means that you marry somebody, a married woman, and you're submitted to the woman rather than the mission itself. And so they give you a mission. The Bible even says, or just in general, right? Just in general, right? If you, matter of fact, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said this: if you don't have a mission, if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a goal, there's somebody out there that has one for you. There's someone out there that has one for you. And how you doing, Crystal? Thanks for being on. How you doing, Sir Howard? Thanks for being part of the community, right? So you got to get in the place where you got a mission. What is your mission? What is our mission? Is it a blessing to somebody? Is it a curse to somebody? Is it something that's supposed to keep you down? Is it something that gets you to a place where somebody's reading your mileage? Remember, mortgage, people gauge your mortality and get you to sign a whole document. And you think it's better to have a mortgage than it is to just hang in there and save up some money and then just own right away. Even if it's smaller, at least it's yours. Because if it's yours, whatever you're paying into the mortgage, that goes into your pocket. That means that if you can pay off a home for way more money, because if you buy it for 300,000, it's probably only worth 30,000, right? You probably could have built it for 15,000, but in your mind, you got to pay 300,000 on it. How many houses could you have bought for 30,000? That's 10 homes you could have bought. But we think it's better to pay off 10 homes to own one home. And then at the end, when we're at the end of our mileage, take out a second mortgage. And I'm not saying, once again, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you should never do a second mortgage. I'm just saying there's a reason that these people are doing this. It's not for your benefit. You got to know what it is for you. You got to have a plan for yourself. They have not planned this out, that you might be able to be worthy of something to take care of your family. This is not why these laws are in place. I don't care what color your skin is. For people who keep getting frustrated about that, I don't care what color your skin is. This is not designed for you to be at your best. This is designed for you to make sure that you are constantly and consistently giving everything you can, and then getting to the end of the week resting so you can give everything you can again. Your children miss out on time with you because it's more important, because in order to take care of your children, you have to spend less time with them. Think about the value of this system that keeps telling us we should go in and we should get deeper and we should get deeper. In order for you to take care of your children, to care for your children, you need to see your children less. And in order to raise your children correctly, somebody else needs to raise them in schools. And in order for you to make sure that your children don't deal with poverty, you'll make sure that you work as if you're in poverty. An impoverished mindset. Pimped. Iceberg Slim, when he wrote the book, he said that he wrote the book in hopes that people would see how he was pimping. And that it would, and he said, if somebody out there reads this book and it causes them to change their mind and to change and to not go down this path and to not be part of a corrupt system. He said, if it just causes one person to do this, he said, I'm glad to do it, because he said he felt dirty being able to talk all this stuff. He said he wishes that he could even tell more because of how dirty it makes him look. He realized he looks dirty, but at the end of the day, he's glad it makes him look dirty because he doesn't want you to ever do the same thing. That's the reason for him writing the book. But we're not even thinking about those things. Matter of fact, let's look at another quote. Right? Let's look at another quote. Right? Let's look at another quote real quick. You ready? And how you doing, Sister Bree? Let's look at another quote real quick. He says, I want to say at the outset that I have become ill, insane, as an inmate of the torture chamber behind America's fake facade of justice and democracy. But I am not as ill as I was, and I am getting better. all the time. Let's say that again. I want to say, right? This is a pimp now. I want to say at the outset that I have become what? I want to say that I have become ill. I'm in the system has made me what? Ill? That means I got disease. I'm not at ease, right? Ill, insane. I'm doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same result. That's what y'all tell me insanity means, right? As an inmate of the torture chamber, as an inmate of the torture, you can tell he a pimp. He uses words very well. Right? As an inmate of the torture chamber. And by the way, that's another thing about pimps, right? You have to be careful what they say because what they know how to make anything sound great. I have to be careful myself because if I want, I'm very great with words. I study words, right? Etymology is something that I enjoy, that I spend hours and hours and hours a week doing, right? So if I'm not careful, if I just want to win an argument, I can win an argument and make it sound great. And 10 years later, somebody realizes I'm full of crap. See, sometimes that's why I say I'm not trying to be right no more. I'm trying to be righteous. A lot of people just want to be right. I want to win. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong, why you're wrong. I'm going to go this. I'm going to look for this Google site. I'm going to do here. I'm going to go here, research this. So everything I can say, but you're just trying to win. Or what you're trying to say is what you're trying to say righteous. Anyways, though, we'll go over some of that later too. So I want to say at the outset that I have become ill, insane as an inmate of the torture chamber behind America's fake facade of justice and democracy. Once again, the facade of democracy is not even written in your constitution, right? This fake facade of justice and democracy. But I am not. Here's the praise Yah. We don't have to stay there. I'm not as ill as I was, and I'm getting better all the time. Remember that the pimp is nothing more than a whore who has turned the game so that they would be able to do to them or do to other whores what was done unto them. Why were you muted? I don't know, Raymond. I didn't mute you. Right? What were you saying? Were you treating people with respect? Were you being a human being? Were you using that homonym? Were you not willing to at least listen before you laid into somebody? I just answered you. You don't have to at me. I got you. Answer me. You want me to answer you? I answered you. Now answer me with respect. If not, I can see why you were muted. We have moderators. They do the muting for me. I haven't muted anybody today. I blocked one person today who was muted several times. Can you start with a hello? Can you start with a this is why I disagree with you? Can you start with a hey, okay, let's go ahead and be on the same page? See, the person comes on. The pimp mindset. Do what I say. Do what I say. I'm gonna turn into this. I'm gonna turn into do what I say. Do what I say. This is what I mean. Why have you muted me? Why did you do this? I'm in the right. I'm in the right. I'm in the right. Like this is not your environment. You're coming into an environment. If you don't like, if you come into my home and you don't want to respect my home, I have the right to kick you out. Or if I have anybody who's decided to help me out in that endeavor and be security or be a moderator in this instance, and they decide to kick you out, we have every right to. You said BW trying to destroy BM and they muted you. You said black women are trying to destroy black men. Well, so I can see why that is. We stay away from that rhetoric because it's actually kind of insanity. Somebody's given that for us to fight against each other versus us trying to habilitate each other. We are always trying to be there. So yeah, there's black women that try to destroy black men. There's black men that try to destroy black women. Now that we've made that there, what is the PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGroy? What are the things that we can do with this PTSD that causes us to want to destroy each other? And why is it? And what are we going to do to make sure that we've both been pimped and we're both trying to whore each other out? We need to all stop being whores and stop being pimped and be free together. Right? Up and see, got muted again. So I can see why. I can see why that somebody would mute you. And I don't disagree with it if it's the whole thing is once again, I've got to be right. 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 Why aren't you listening to me? Why aren't you listening to me? I'm right about it. It's all black women's fault. You know, black women black men can't be pimps at all. Black women can't be pimps at all. As I mean, I can see. I see it though. You know, but once again, so I can see that. But also too, we might be a little, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes we have to be fast with the trigger finger because we have to be in a position to where, um, people have literally lied on us and said that we've said things we haven't said, this, that, the third. So, but once again, I don't see, and even that, it gets us off track too, because now it takes me a minute to try and figure out where I was. I don't even know where I was, yo. Let me see. Let me just read. Oh, fake facade, but I am not as ill as I was, and I'm getting better all the time. So we can get out of this. We can come out of this is the goal, right? We can come out of this is the goal. And see the whole thing of black men do it to black women do it to black men. I mean, there's pimps on all sides. See, that's why we started in talking about this stuff, right? That there are women, and I just literally, I think not even just 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, was talking about how, at the most, was talking about how be in submission to a mission, not be in submission, submitted to a man, not be some woman shouldn't be submitted to a woman. As soon as you do that, you're crossing the line into pimpdom, if you will. I know I just kind of made that up, but being pimp. And today is the pimp code. We're in the code breaker series. We're talking about the pimp code. Right, tomorrow we're going to talk about forgiveness and truth. Because even in all the stuff we're talking about, you can't have this without forgiveness and truth, and that's a big part of it that's missing. But yeah, we've been in a position to where it's made us ill, insane, inmates of torture chambers behind America's fake facade of justice and democracy, which there's no such thing in America's democracy. And even if you want to talk about democracy, democracy is literally democracy, a demonstration or a few people who live together in a village who govern. Cracy is government. So anything that you see CRACY on the end of it, anytime you see that at the end of something, it means you're talking about a government. Like we were talking about last night, a state of emergency. Y'all remember we were talking about that last night? A state of emergency. We're in a place of a state of emergency. What is a state? A state is a government. A state is a country. A state can even be a governing a way that your mind is governed, a state of mind. So a state of emergency, what we are emerged in. The CY on it makes it a state that we are emerged in, a state that we are emerged in, a mindset that we are emerged in, right? You don't become, um, even if you're captured, right? Because are people who are captured into this, but Iceberg Slim didn't capture women. He tried to captivate them. We talked about this in first, no, second Timothy chapter 3, right? Where there are men out there who are high-minded, lovers of themselves, lovers of, put themselves before the Most High, boastful, proud, etc., and they captivate silly women who are laden with sins. They look for women who are in sin. They look for women who don't know who they are. They look for people who don't know who they are. Um, I speak about complete separation is relative. I don't talk about like complete as in we should never see anybody ever again outside of a little community. But I do speak of, yeah, there's nothing wrong with separation. I mean, people are already separated anyways. Let's just keep it 100. Let's keep it about. Like to act like your churches aren't separated is foolish. Even when people say we're multi, we have multiple, what is it? What is the term that they use? Multiracial, but that's not really what they like to say when they say their churches are multiracial. What is it they say? We're multi no, not non-denominational, but when they're trying to basically say that they're not of one people in the church. But when you go to those churches, like 80-90% of those places are going to be one people. Right? Multicultural, I guess is the one when they talk about diversity. But reality is if you go to church, you'll see not only white churches, black churches, Mexican churches, Puerto Rican churches, and that would make sense, by the way, because they speak the same language and they have the same culture. So it's not a bad thing per se. But but you got light skinned churches, you got dark skinned churches, you got churches that everybody on the staff is going to be female, you got churches everybody on staff is going to be male. You got a lot of those things, right? So it's already separation that happens. Separation is like as much as people don't want to talk about this, separation is a natural occurrence that happens. Like let's do this as a working definition. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Separation is a natural occurrence that happens when people who love themselves live with each other. I'm not trying to say that you can't marry somebody outside your race and blah blah ever, right? But hear what I'm saying. Separation. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for that working definition because I've never even heard it said like that before, but it makes sense. Separation is a natural occurrence that happens when people who love one another, or people who love one another, decide to live with one another. It's a natural occurrence. Even for those of you who want to go into nature, natural law, sure, ravens might even hang out with wolves, but ravens don't live with wolves, right? Like you might have zebra and wildebeest and um, zebra, wildebeest. I said zebra, sorry, zebra, wildebeest, and sometimes other animals that are there than animals that hunt as well. So maybe you got a little bit of antelope from time to time, but not really. Maybe you have lions that follow them because they're trying to hunt. Maybe you have hyenas that might show up every once in a while because they see that there might be some weak animals that won't be able to go that far. Maybe you have wild dogs that kind of when they come through the area, they try to chase them, right? But the reality of the matter is that like even when you have wildebeest and zebra and lions and all these things that might come into the same place, you might have elephants that come around, all these animals come to the water hole, you might have crocodiles there. At the end of the day, yes, you have all these people that are there, but they're still going to live with each other. It's not a bad thing. Yeah, and even amongst our own people. Yeah, we said it all this kind of time. Not all skin folk is kinfolk. The Bible even says not all Israel is Israel. And matter of fact, when you get into Balaam doctrine, you'll discover that it's a priest of Israel, a prophet of Israel, that even decided to help out for gold to be able to sell his own people out. I mean, heck, I don't even have to explain if I were to call somebody a Judas. Or explain or say if somebody gave the Judas kiss, you already know what that is. So just because somebody's part of your people doesn't mean they don't have it in them to do evil. That's not what this is about at all. But what I'm saying is there are people out there pimping you and they're causing confusion and they're doing all types of stuff, getting us to go for this fake facade, right, of justice and democracy. But it is possible for us. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? It is possible for us that even though we are ill, right, as ill as we were, as insane as we were, as much of inmates of the torture chamber as we were, it is possible for us, hallelujah, to do what? To be better than we were and to keep getting better all the time. And that's what's going to happen is it's going to be a constant and consistent process. And how you doing, Hidden? I'm sorry if I didn't say anything already. Right? There's going to be constant and consistent every day grinding towards making sure that freedom looks like what freedom looks like for you. Is that not ultimate freedom? Is that not ultimate freedom? That you can be your greatest self and describe your culture. See, this is why I said tell people I don't have a problem with gentrification. I don't think we should have a problem with gentrification at all. I think we should have a problem that we've never sought gentrification to make our communities be gentrified like ourselves. Is this a lecture or a debate? It's a conversation amongst people who are like-minded. And if the whole thing is saying, I guess, that are you allowed to ask questions or disagree? You sure can. We just ask that you not go ad hominem or make assumptions or do things like that, and that we could talk through things as human beings. If you're asking, can you come on and speak? Well, you can come on and speak. Okay, cool. So you're new here. Yeah. So yeah, we definitely value people questioning things for sure, or making comments or doing whatever. So I guess you could say it's a lecture of sorts, but I try my best to be as inclusive as possible. But this is an environment that we, protect to make sure that it can be people who are like-minded and free-minded to be able to come on, as long as everybody treats each other with respect. Right. So this pimp thing that's going on, this pimp code, if you will, people have been being pimped, and it's time for us to come out of it. I'm a follower of the way, Yasharal, kingdom of heaven, right? We have to start making these changes and realizing that if you've been pimped for a long time, right? Remember the woman in the car I was discussing earlier, the pimp already knew the only way that she's going to try to even separate, the only reason why she would even be ready to possibly get on the train, have her bag packed, go to another place, is because the pimp knew that she had been saving for herself and was not ready to just give 100%. into it. Well, religion just means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. So if you drink water out of a copper cup and I drink water out of a copper cup, we share the same religion by definition. It's not the religion that's the problem. We should be religious about many things because we should have habits, right? We should have a culture. Problem is that whose culture are we religious in, so to speak? What religion? What do we do religiously? That's the problem. Aman. Yashara, yashara, right? Yashadallah. Yashadallah. Excuse me. Right. And we're missing our culture. We don't care about our culture because we don't think it matters. Because once again, we have Stockholm syndrome. Even when we're arguing, a lot of times when we make our arguments, it's coming out of somebody else's mindset. It's coming out of somebody else's system. Right. It's not our system. It's not our system. It's not something that we just started. That's why I tell you guys, a lot of people say to myself, they think it's weird when I say I don't call anybody a gentleman or a lady. But you know why I don't call them gentlemen or ladies? Because when you meet ladies and gentlemen, whenever I hear somebody say ladies and gentlemen, I always start looking for somebody who's doing something evil. Right? Like Thomas Jefferson was a gentleman. Watch this. If we start at George Washington, because once again, we know there's 8 presidents before him. But watch this. George Washington was a gentleman. Thomas Jefferson was a gentleman. Monroe was a gentleman. Madison was a gentleman. Those are the first, if you start with Washington, those are the first 4 out of 5 people, right? Those are the first 4 out of 5 people, or first 4 out of 5 presidents for many of you who don't know about the presidents came before. Those are all Virginia slave owners. They were all gentlemen. What was gentle about them? Were they gentle towards us or were they gentle towards somebody else? This is what a gentleman does. You see what I'm saying? So even in our language, even when the way I describe things, even when I talk about people, I don't talk about people through somebody else's lens. We have to look through our own prism. And the person that said that's weird, well then I mean you don't mind it when you call each other the N word and say that you took the power back. Matter of fact, in our culture, on my indigenous side, or if you want to call it the Native American side, we don't call presidents presidents. We call presidents town destroyers. So I'm nice on here when I say your presidents and stuff like that because that's who they are to you. But you know, George Washington, he killed a bunch of us who were copper colored indigenous to the Americas. You know, that's the initial definition of an American by law. The original American is a copper colored person indigenous to the Americas. Yeah, I say sir sometimes too. I'm not even sure how much I should be saying that in all honesty. But sir is more so about knighthood, you know. But we say stuff all the time like ache or ak or achayat or akat, things like that. But yeah, presidents were town destroyers. So, like in our culture, we don't like to carry Jacksons. We don't really like to carry any of them, but I mean, because slave owners are on all your money. The pimps are on all the money. Like, think about the mindset of the country where pimps are on your money. Have you ever thought about that? Why do you have pimps on your money? Why you got slave masters on your money? If slavery is something that we should stop talking about, why do you keep spending slave owners? And if you're spending slave owners, then we got to think slaves. The same people that will tell you that. Go get a job. Stop talking like that. Cut your hair. Wear what we tell you to wear. Why are you always bringing that up? But go get a job so you can have some money. But the money has slave owners on it. Hey, Shalom, how you doing? Shalom, excuse me. Or Ak, for some, right? The money has slave owners on it. Yeah, Benjamin Franklin was never a president. He was a slave owner. They didn't put these people on there just because they were presidents. By the way, presidents just set precedent. So if every person who sets precedent on your money owned you, then the precedent is that you're spending who spends you. And you don't even have your own communities to spend you in. So you earn that. Even people who ask me all the time, "Well, when it comes to sovereignty, when it comes to sovereignty, I don't know what's going to happen. When it comes to sovereignty, I don't know what's going to happen. When it comes to sovereignty, are we going to be able to do this? Are we going to be able to do that? I don't want to let go." No, by law, what you make through your labor is your labor. That's yours. They can't take your labor away from you. But you don't own your own neighborhood. You keep talking about black neighborhoods. Tell me, what do you consider to be a black neighborhood? The ghetto? Because the ghetto was not owned by you. Until you own the ghetto, it's not your ghetto. Even back in when we as a people don't even know this. We as a people, the first ghettos was us as Israelites. They called you Negroes. Nowadays they call you Sephardic Jews. It's code. Got to break the code. Now they call you Sephardic Jews. The first ghettos that you were put in back in the times of the Spanish Inquisition in Portugal and in Spain, but Portugal for the most part, guess what? Those were ghettos that you were put in where they put you in hoodies. You had to wear black hoodies. You played music and put poetry to the music. You were rapping, doing all this stuff. You had hip hop back then. You think hip hop is what people call modern stuff because it's owned by other people. But when you were back putting poetry over music and being in hoodies and living in ghettos at the time of the Spanish Inquisition, and the first slaves they started trading were you, and they described you as being black and having woolly hair and being swarthy and looking like the people of West Africa and looking like the people of Morocco. That was you. But somebody pimped you so much, daddy, I can't be an Israelite. I can't be a Moor. I can't be a freedman. I can't be native. He told you what he assigned you. I didn't make these things. The Western law says that the first Americans that were known as Americans are known as copper-colored people indigenous to the Americas. How you doing, Sister Mary? Oh, and hey, how you doing, babe? My wife is on, the Honorable Maya. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And thank you for being on, babe. Love you very much. That's my queen. That's the greatest woman on the planet, as far as I'm concerned, and you can't tell me no different. I'm right. But we're in this situation where we've been pimped, and thank you for the love. We're in a situation where we've been pimped. We don't comprehend it. We don't think of it that way. It's too nasty. It's too dirty, but it's real. It's too nasty. It's too dirty to talk about, but it's real. You go through it every day. This is how they think. This is how pimps think. I have been bigger sucker than a square mark. All he loses is scratch. I had joined the club that suckered me behind bars 5 times. Did a square scratch. Scratch is everything. Y'all know that, right? In capitalism, scratch is everything. Scratch is money. When these people itch, what do? When you're addicted to something, what do? Capital. What do? That's why you call it scratch. Come on. Even when you go, right? Even when you go and play your lotto, what you call it? I know they even call it that in Canada, right? I think they might call it that in England as well, right? You call it what? You go and you're gonna play that you'll get that ticket, that lotto ticket. What you gonna do? You're gonna scratch that itch. You're addicted to this system. People think that that's all you got to do. Throw some money at it. It'll be okay. That's the thought that you have. You don't even think about, hey, you know what? If my marriage is not doing all right, maybe we need some prayer. Right? My marriage is not doing all right. I don't know. Maybe we need to eat better. It seems like our instincts are off. Maybe our gut health isn't right. Maybe we need to focus on that. We don't even think like that. Food is low, and they're making it difficult to be able to buy food, especially natural food, even if the natural food isn't really natural food. Maybe you don't even think, let's go forage. I'm not educated. I need to make sure I save up all this money so I can pay for $100,000, $200,000 education. You don't even think, do our people teach this stuff, and do we teach and do less than we say all the time? We don't have our own businesses, but your people who have businesses, you don't even try to get with them and see what they're saying. We have people who have all types of businesses part of this, and very few people actually reach out and say, hey, you said you guys have businesses. Where can I find those? Right? Because it's not even important to us. Why? Because in our mindset, we're already owned. We're already pimped. We already hoard out, excuse me, right? That's what happens to us in our mindset. So Walmart, I can just go there. I won't pay to have somebody in my community give me something. I'd rather just go to Walmart. Matter of fact, I'm in a food desert. I'll go, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody or trying to speak negative. I'm just giving you facts, right? In my black community, I'll go to the Chinese restaurant for fried food that we make and that we taught them to make. That they don't even make it as well, but I'll go there and I'll pay them the money for something that we make ourselves, and I'll look for the sauces that we came up with. Ain't nothing that hurt my heart. As I won't say a DC native, but somebody who considers himself, to be a Washingtonian or whatever we call ourselves. We call ourselves so many different things. Then when I'm reading an article and it's saying that mumbo sauce was made up by this Chinese restaurant, I'm like, mumbo sauce, right? Like we've been doing that. Not only do we do that in DC, like we do that over at what is it called in Chicago? Harold's Chicken. I mean, we've been doing mumbo sauce, or what we call mumbo sauce over in the DMV. We've been doing that for generations. How you gonna come over and tell us what we've been doing, and then give it to somebody else, right? But when you don't own your own, it's not yours. It's not your community, right? Even when people use Black Israelite, really what you got to be careful for is when they call you Black Hebrew Israelite, because that's what they have us in the CIA and the FBI as people that you got to look out for. But we don't even call ourselves that. Who started calling you that? Who started calling you that? See, that's not something we ever called ourselves. It's like when you talk about ISIS, you think all these people are evil. And I'm not saying people who are declared as ISIS, none of them are evil, but you'll declare people as ISIS. And ISIS was a word made up by Americans that wanted other Americans to say, let's go to war. It was made up by the war machine. Like people didn't know what ISIS was until you had to explain to them, oh, you guys are ISIS. Oh, really? And they'd be like, well, you guys are ISIS. Well, what is that? We don't even know who that is. What is ISIS? Well, that's why we're coming to kill you, because you're ISIS. Homeschoolers are on the list as well. A lot of them are, right? Like I'm not even telling tales. I've told y'all before. Like there's times that I go outside. I know at certain times I'm going to see certain cars in certain places that I go frequently. It just is what it is. And I'm not even what you consider a big time person. People just want to check on you, keep tabs on you. And I got to make sure, that's why I got to make sure I'm sovereign. I got to be a better observer of the law than everybody else is. You know why? Because they're looking for whatever they can to say this dude is not lawful. Oh, as a group, homeschoolers are okay. I wasn't even aware of that, as far as like just as a group, they look at anybody as that, okay. Or I might be I feel like I might, sorry, Sister Bree, if I think I might just not even be getting the gist of, of what you're saying. Sorry about it. But I think, yeah, yeah, as far as us teaching, you got to teach what they say. You got to they check on you. You got to make sure that bring this, do this way, that way. So, Sister Bree, I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting what you're saying. Please, I apologize. Sometimes I'm not, I can make mistakes. But yeah, you see all these things and say, how you doing, Dwayne? Thanks for being on. Like you got to be real about this. When you start telling your story and not his story, you're a problem. When you start saying that these people are pimping you, problematic. When you can articulate it and it actually is correct and you don't have to do what they do. See, because they're looking to do what they did. What they're trying to say, we're going to reverse. When we said we're going to reverse the curse, in their mind, it means we have to reverse the curse by doing unto them what they did unto us. But see, the golden rule, this is why you got to know your Bible, read your Bible, it'll bless you. The golden rule, Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, is not just do unto others as you would want done unto yourself. That's half of the golden rule. And they know this. We don't know it. We don't even read what it is. They know it. They're efficient and proficient. And the person, they work for the devil, right? He's proficient. He's efficient, right? It says, do unto others as you want done unto you, for this is the law and the prophets. They know that if you ever get back to prophets and law, prophecy, word, commandments, statutes, precepts, If you ever get back to looking at things for what they are, etymology, if you ever comprehend that it's okay to wear yourself, to wear yourself, to wear yourself. If you ever get back to tangible evidence, as Willie Lynch called it, if you ever get back to tangible evidence of who you are, if you ever start speaking your own language again, right? Anai Kofi, instead of my name is Kofi. If you ever get to learning the alphabet before the alphabet, Aleph, Bet, Gemon, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mim, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pe, Tesade, right? Kof, Resh, Shin, Tav. If you ever get back to speaking yourself and being able now not to just say the characters, but now you know what they mean, which if I were to put them in order, Aleph, the father of all, Bet, who the son who comes out the right, who's one with the son who comes out the right family, Gamal humbled himself, Dalit, by becoming the door into a rest point to where hey, we can have access to the Holy Spirit, Vav, nailing us in place by being nailed for us, Zion, that we might have a weapon that we can speak, but also something that we speak that cultivates, for the weapons of our warfare not carnal, but the mighty pulling down the strongholds, that therefore Het, we would have this protection around us, Tet, that causes us to have wisdom, Yav, that allows us to be led by the hand of the Father, Kaf, and never be plucked out of the hand of the Son, Lamed, being taught by the great shepherd, Mim, in the water, blood, and spirit of life, that none, we would be perfected, Samek, that we would be able to be throw seed even in thorny ground that we're in, and see it to be able to grow. And when the seed grows, we will then eye and see our countenance change, have a different vision about ourselves, Pet, that we might speak different, Tasadi, becoming fishermen of men, Quoth, that we might prepare ourselves for greatness, Resh, that we become head of environments, Sheen, that allow us to escape destruction, Tav, because it's already been finished and marked, and we were saved at the cross. Like, that's your culture. That's the olive bait. Every pictograph, every character, what you would call every letter, it literally has a meaning to it. But all you know is alphabet, and even the alphabet has meaning, but you don't know what it is. See, when you read Psalm 119 in your Bible, it literally tells you Aleph, Bet, Gamal, Dalet, He, Vav, Zion, Het, Tet, all the way to Tav. And when you read it, you're supposed to read. That's why Psalm 119 has 176 verses, 22 times 8. Or if you divide 176 by 22, you get 8. That means that for every character, there's 8 verses. 8 verses go with Aleph. 8 verses go with Bet. 8 verses go with Gamal. 8 verses go with Dalet, all the way down. And you're supposed to know those characters. That's supposed to be things we were taught when we were little children. Matter of fact, we were supposed to bake those characters, right? When it says that I eat the word, when it says the word, I ate the word, it tasted like honey. When it says, oh, taste and see that Elohim is righteous, or that Yahweh is great, right? That he is constitutional, is literally saying that they would cook the words, they would bake the letters. And when they would finish baking the letters, then they would eat what they would eat what they baked, and they would literally be learning the characters and the culture from children, and they would say, oh, this is great. So you've had alphabet soup, you've had alphabet cereal, right, you've seen certain things like that, but you've never seen your culture on display like that, have you? Right, when you don't know the characters, you don't even know how to read. See, we've been pimped so much that we don't even think that we don't even, it doesn't even make sense to us that we could actually have somebody be teaching us something that's not ours. And once again, we even go to this point where people start saying that's the white man's religion. That's this, that's that. I get that all the time. That's the white man's religion. It's like, before there was a such thing as white, before there was such thing as Rome, before there was a such thing as Greece, before there was such thing as Persia, before there was such thing as Babylon, this language existed. If it's Shemitic, it means that it goes back past all that, right? Even if you want to talk about the Kemetic people be like, oh, but the people of Kemet, and you stole from them. It's like they had people called shepherd kings, and we were shepherd kings in our own right, which means that now we're talking about people who spoke the same language. Don't forget that whether you believe that had scattered language, or whether you believe that through time people just began to have different dialects to turn to different languages, either way, all of us at one point were more one together. Both the Bible and science discuss something that you would probably call Pangea, where we were all together and eventually split apart. So this weird item that is like, oh, you had to steal. See, the more we learn about it, the more one we should become. If what you're learning causes more separation of you, then it means it's not even of any value. All these girls that work, they didn't work together. They might look out for each other, but all these girls that work for the pimp, they didn't work together. They worked and they had sex with different people because you can't make enough money off of the girls if all the girls are always in the same place or in the same room, or they only one girl works at a time. You send them all out to work so that they get dispersed. As they're dispersed and they're not talking to each other, it's making you more money. It's keeping them bound. It's keeping them to where they can't learn the truth. It's getting them to where they can't talk enough to each other to realize, wait a minute, we keep talking and talking and talking. Something ain't right about daddy. We need to leave him alone. You got to keep them working. You got to keep them occupied. You got to keep them talking about all these different things. You got to keep giving them news. Willie Lynch told y'all that whenever you get tangible evidence of yourself, it will start to rewire the way that your mind works. And therefore, every time these people learn something about themselves, we got to immediately flood them with something that has nothing to do with them at all. He told you that. He gave you the game. Just because you ain't called him a pimp didn't mean that he wasn't pimping. These people been pimping since pimping was pimping was pimping. And you sitting up here being pimped over and over again, and nobody wants to stand up and say, hey, are there not similarities between you and the pimp? Did we not learn this stuff? See, here's something that we got to also look at as well. People don't want to look at this, but here's something that, you know, Iceberg Slim was trying to tell y'all. He's trying to teach you. He's trying to show you the game as he became somebody that realized that he was ill and that he was in this wicked system and that he needed to get better every day. Here's something that we missed if you read the book, or maybe you just don't remember. But remember, and I think this is one of the quotes that Dave Chappelle made famous, right? Here's something that we got to remember. You ready? Peep game. See, they told you this, but you didn't know this, right? See, you think they new to this, but they true to this. This is new for some of us, but they ain't new to this. They true to this. All right. Dave Chappelle, this is the one that everybody really knows. If you really look at pimping, if you really want to control somebody that's starting to get out of control or starting to think that they have a right to come against you or they try to fight you or whatever, all you do, this is one of the ways you deal with them. You beat them with a wire hanger. Matter of fact, one of the terms that we have on here, if I'm not mistaken, I think actually describes that. Hold on one second. I don't have these all from memory because this is not a community that I'm in. Well, it could be considered to be branding, but not that. Oh, that's what I was looking for earlier. Remember, I was saying there's a circle of people and all that pimp circle. That's what I was looking for. But that can be part of it too. Is also when these girls start going around, they form a circle to beat them up. But that's not what I'm looking for. What is that? Somebody see it on there? I can't see it. It's really, 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 really small for me on here, so I can't really see it. Uh, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Right. I'm not sure. I'm not. Is it seasoning? Spirit by gaining control over her using. Okay, seasoning. Yeah. Okay. So when you hear them talking about this term, that's what they're talking about, right? But you see, you're supposed to be seasoned. You're supposed to be salt to season people so that they would see the light. Pimp seasons for a different reason. Okay. So you're supposed to, and I'm trying to get myself out the way as much as possible, but basically, if somebody gets out of control, this is what you do. You're supposed to beat them. And what Iceberg Slim did, he took a wire hanger and he beats this one of the women that's getting out of control, or at least he was told to do so. He had somebody who was getting out of control. There was an older pimp he looked up to. The older pimp would allow him to do a little bit of things in this area as long as he didn't try to, kind of overtake him or whatever. And so has this woman that's out of control. He says, "Well, what should I do?" The guy says, "This is what you do. You beat her with a wire hanger. Beat her and beat her and beat her and beat her." He said, "Then after that, you're gonna get a bath as she's crying, as she's hurt, as she's in pain. You're gonna get a bath together, and you're gonna put her in the bath. You're gonna make sure that there's some stuff to help her heal that's in the water. Probably play some music for you, or give her some drugs." And he said, she'll be so happy. She'll be so happy, right? Oh, and you got to heat it up for. Okay, you got to heat it up first. I don't even remember that part, right? But he says she'll be so happy afterwards that you fixed her. That's what they call it, right? Even dig that, right? the catch I sound like them now. You study them long enough, you start sounding like the people you study. But dig that, get that, right? Comprehend this piece. Wire hanger, fix her. Like this is you see how the language is, you don't even realize like you're using language, these pimps using language, whatever, these abortionists using language, but nevertheless, right? Talking about fixing her, they fix dogs, you know, stuff like that. And what is she supposed to be? A B word dog fixed. Anyways, though, he says she'll be so happy you fixed her that she'll forget you're the mother effer that put her in the situation in the first place. Yep, sounds like Margaret Sanger, right? There, people put you in the situation, and then they'll fix you, and you'll be so happy that they fixed you that you'll forget, even though you should have never needed to be fixed in the first place, and you'll also forget that they're the people that put you in that situation in the first place. We can't wait for the Democrats to do this. They're the same other efforts that put you in the position in the first place. See, you got to with pimp code. We're so glad that Trump's going to come in and do this, and he's going to show us the game. Trump is the same person that never told you guys how to pay taxes and was paying taxes in the first. He's the same mother effer that told you in the first place. Don't matter who you want to bring up. We're so happy Oprah's trying to get this stuff together. She's gonna tell people how to bring things together, whatever. And Oprah's gonna bring out the wrongs that Lance Armstrong did. It's like Oprah, you and Lance Armstrong did the same thing. Lance Armstrong was out here lying and doing stuff to make money. Oprah, you were out here putting. I remember Oprah before people thought you was somebody positive. I remember watching. Oprah was like watching. Matter of fact, I think Ricky Lake, I would have probably said had more class. Like Oprah was like watching Donahue. Oprah was like watching any of these other cats out here. Oprah was sometimes dang on near Jerry Springer. And now all of a sudden you can't stand that Lance Armstrong did something, Oprah. Like you the same person. But once again, remember the quote. Remember the quote. See, we don't like we it might not be something you like, but you need to hear this because you're living this, right? Believe me, Slim, a pimp is really a whore who's reversed the game on whores. Exactly. Like my wife said, it's the game. Oprah is nothing more than what you used to be, right? What you used to be. Went through the same situation, went through painful stuff or whatever. She decided that she was going to become a pimp. You out here not realizing when she says, you get a car and you get a car and you get a car and you get a house and you get a house and you get a book and you get a book. When she was doing that, that was tax free. That meant that she was going to get paid back. Everything she gave you was coming right back into her pocket. She couldn't want, and see, the pimp gets the game. See, you won't bless anybody, not realizing that your heavenly Father will give more than what you give. See, the pimp gives, realizing that whatever they give has to come back. But see, you want to give in this system because whatever you give is going to be greater. But we're living by the pimp code instead of that kingdom code. Oprah was introducing young girls to Harvey Weinstein. Don't forget about the guy that was down in South America who was, doing all types of wild stuff and impregnating girls and having girls, I think, even drinking his semen out of water and stuff, saying that it was the seed or the word of Yah, stuff like that. But she had him on the show. Never forget that. That's why I said earlier to the person that was coming on and all this stuff and I thought I was trying to make it black, white. It's like, look, not all skin folk is kin folk. We comprehend that clearly. And we comprehend that we're some of the most broken people that's out there. Therefore, broken people break other people. Hurt people look for other hurt people. Hurt people look for people. Now, going back to Iceberg Slim's childhood, though, we got to also be honest about this stuff, right? Because we don't look at it. But see, all these pimps were pimped. Remember, a pimp is nothing more than a whore who's turned the game on the whores and has become the pimp that now the whores look up to and they hope one day to become. But that's all the pimp is somebody that was pimped out at some point in his life. See, you got to look at it now. See, once again, how have our people been hurt? How have our people been raised? How have our people been led astray? How have our people had seen these bad examples of marriage and mothers and fathers their whole life? Iceberg Slim, mother and father, they get together, and his mother really loves his father. His father, loves his mother, gets a great job as a cook somewhere as a chef, and next thing probably using a little bit of drugs, definitely cheating on his wife. Wife finds out about it, and she's hurt by it. And basically, like, the father says, I'm gonna try and get my life together, this and that, or whatever, and never really does. Iceberg Slim describes it as he never had the stomach for it, because it takes the stomach, it takes fortitude, it takes guts, it takes power, it takes decision making, it takes accountability to be a husband, to be a father, and to be consistent. I know people nowadays will be like, "You're supposed to do that." Look, I'm trying to tell you, this thing is not easy being a man. It's not easy being a woman either. It's not easy being an Israelite. It's not easy being a Moor. It's not easy being black. Whatever you want to put upon yourself, but it ain't easy. This thing called life is not easy. I know everybody wants you to make it, but it becomes easier when we take certain burdens off of ourselves. But this man, he Iceberg Slim, see, I love the way he described it. He said his father didn't have the stomach for it. His father didn't have the stomach, the fortitude. It takes something. So, sisters, if you have an accountable man, love on that accountable man, because it takes something to be accountable. I know you don't think it does, but it takes something to be accountable, right? I know you think that every brother out there is just doing this stuff, but there's a lot of brothers. I promise you, if sisters, if you be honest and just look at some things, some of the men you've been around and stuff like that, if you have an accountable man, you better bless God for that man. You better praise him for that man, and you better show your husband respect every once in a while for being accountable, because there's a lot of brothers out here who are not trying to come home at night. There's a lot of brothers out here who will not make sure that you know everything that's in their phone. There's a lot of brothers out here who do not want a joint bank account. There's a lot of brothers out here who are not willing to make sure that they are willing to take care of you if something breaks off. You always mad. You always trying to fight when something goes off. Yeah, because he's willing to die for you. That's not a common. It should be a common thing, but once again, we're not in our culture. We're in Stockholm syndrome. If you're dealing with somebody who's a whore, the man himself is looking for security from the pimp, and he gets a false sense of security, which means that he holds himself out too. He's not trying to do what's righteous. So I'm not trying to say give him a cookie every time he does something basic, but I'm just trying to tell you, as much as you think this is, there's a lot of men that, yes, they make more money than your man does, but them men hit women. There's a lot of Jeff Bezos out there. I'm just trying to tell you, there's a lot of them. Where there's some Jeff Bezos out there where you sit up there and you be like, oh, he's the fourth richest man in the world, which is a lie. They don't tell you who all the people are, but he's the fourth richest man in the world. Yeah. And as soon as somebody says, I'm going to out you for cheating on your wife, he says, go ahead, out me. I'm going to go ahead and sue you. I'm going to take your company. I'm going to take your money. And then on top of that, I'm going to go ahead and buy some other companies and make sure that now I can own the press so that I can put out whatever I want about myself. And my wife, she can go ahead and take a bunch of money. I don't care, because she never meant anything to me. See, that's Greco-Roman value, and that's the Stockholm syndrome a lot of people are in. And you're thinking that because a man has credit, that he has the heart and the fortitude to become a great father, a great husband, and a worthy proprietor of the kingdom of Yah. Right? I'm just trying to tell you. I'm just trying to tell you. Right? Just like a wife, right? We call the Proverbs 31 woman, the virtuous woman, right? She's more valuable than rubies. I'm telling you, the brother that's a foundation, he's what the house is built upon, right? Any house, no matter how valuable, if it's built upon a foundation of sand, is nothing. When you get a brother that's a rock, praise Yah. You know what I'm saying? We have a different mindset. We're not looking for it. Nevertheless, right? This man, he came from being pimped. His mother was pimped. He said his father didn't have the stomach for it. So even though his father might have loved her, he didn't have the training. He didn't have the stomach for it. He had the discipline to cook food for white men and get relatively good money, but he didn't have the stomach to take care of a family. The pimp has enough sense. See, we think that pimps are just stupid or slow or grimy or whatever. No, these people are articulate. There's a reason why they know how to get people to go ahead and bow down to them. Like, there's a reason for that. These people are, they could have been doctors. Matter of fact, Iceberg Slim's mother wanted him to be a lawyer. He became an author, obviously a very successful author. Was able to take care of his family, became a square, was smart enough to say that being a square is better than being a pimp. Right? But his father was messed up. Now watch this. So his father's messed up. Guess what happens? See, this is Deuteronomy 28, starting at verse 54. The man is tender. Now what happens in Deuteronomy 28, verse 56? The woman becomes tender. The father is messed up and not prepared and starts messing things up. He had the gift of gab, even, hey, I'm gonna become a better man, this and that, but never did. So the mother has to leave him alone. Guess what the mother has to start doing? She has to start pimping Slim. Now, not in the way that you think, but it's going to become a physical manifestation, though. Hang in there with me. So Slim's father is basically ends up pimping the mama, While he's being pimped, if you know how the how the work thing works, he's being pimped by the person he works for financially. He's now in a position where he thinks he can mess around with his wife and now pimping his wife and wants his wife to be the bottom, right? Right now, she leaves him, and she once again, what is a pimp? A pimp is nothing but a whore who reversed the game on other whores. So now she becomes a pimp. This is what she does to make money. She goes around door to door. Somebody opens up the door. Hi, I swear to you, hello, ma'am. I'm gonna do your hair, and I swear to you, I'll do your hair and I'll make it look so shiny. It'll be shinier. This is what she said. I'm quoting. I'll make your hair so shiny. I'll make your hair so shiny that it'll shine just like some new money. And then what she would do in the cold, right? I don't remember if they're in Chicago at this point, if they're in Wisconsin somewhere, but they're somewhere in that area. In the cold, she would then take her baby Slim, out and show him. Yeah, she would make it a point she'd try to make it look like an accident. She told him she did this, that she would make it look like it was an accident, but somehow, some way they would see the baby bundled up on her. And when they would see the baby, of course, you're not going to turn them down. So for 50 cents, which at the time is enough to be able to just take care of this, that, whatever, go to the store, pick some things up, she would do that for hours and hours and hours a day, pimping her son to make sure that she could take care of her son. Sound familiar? We getting somewhere? You said 13 watching, only 2. Oh, okay. Thank you, Minister Sonia. Right? You see that? Like now she's pimping the child to make the money. Oh, that y'all never heard of that before, but people go ahead and put bills in their children's names because they done mess up their credit, so they pimping the child to make sure that, hey, if I'll make sure that this phone stays on, you won't have no phone. If I'll make sure this electricity stays on, you won't have no electricity. If I'll make sure this gas is in your name, and then they don't, but they're not accountable. So we still going to do the same thing. Now, even though you don't necessarily even need credit technically to be able to buy anything, but because that's the standard we live by, your child ain't got no credit. Before they leave the house, they already can't get an apartment. Before they leave the house, they already can't have a residence. Before they leave the house, if they wanted to go ahead and get help from the state is already like, wow, we behind the 8 ball, because that's what Deuteronomy 28 says. Deuteronomy 28 verse 54. The tender husband, he starts taking it out on his wife and his children and even other men. He covets what they have. Then the tender wife, she starts getting upset at her husband, and she starts getting upset at her children. And now here are the children out here dealing with these curses. And so Iceberg Slim, he's already being pimped. So much so that his mother is going to have to try her best to be able to ensure that she can sometimes have extra time to be able to do things. So she finds a babysitter. And guess what? The babysitter is the first woman to Georgia him. Now, once again, this term Georgia, it literally means that somebody's asking you for, is getting sex from you without you first getting a payment, getting what you think you're owed up front. And this woman started doing this as a babysitter, guess what? When he was 3 years old. So see, you only just looking at the pimp, not realizing that the pimp was already getting Georgia or getting forced, right? Georgia forcing the stuff, a sex slave. Mama might have known about it, but basically was going in a situation where she didn't even want to go down that route. She just said, say, that's not what I'm thinking. Right? Then you go before that to where she was pimped by the husband pimped, right? And the person who's pimping him pimped by society. It's a code. And we don't even know that we're living by it. So Iceberg Slim was being pimped from a little child. He said he can't even remember the woman's face. He can only remember what her stuff felt like against his face and how he couldn't breathe. He remembers the way her body clenched, how her hand was when she forced his head there, and he remembered that basically she taught him how to do so he was using his tongue. He remembers how sore it was at the end of his tongue. 3 years old. And even when he wrote the book, even though he was out of pimping, he said, man, I wish, he said, if I ever came across that woman, he said, she's probably gray haired or maybe even dead now. But he said, if I ever came across that woman, he said, I would have to do something about how she Georged me so I could make sure that in my mind, I could make that square. Because he was saying she still has control of my mind. I'd have to do something to her. He said I might have to come out of where I am now and literally attack that woman, because the only way I could get peace if I saw her again, I would want peace of mind again. I still remember it to this day. And so some people are out here pimping to get that, exactly, to get that power back. Some people out here pimping other people because they were taken advantage of. Once again, what is a pimp? A pimp is a hoe, or a pimp is a whore, excuse me. That's what the term he used. A pimp is a whore who has reversed the game on other whores and says the same stuff that I've done. Matter of fact, when he stood at his mother's grave, he thought to himself that, he's like, do I take delight in the fact, because he loves his mama, he appreciates his mama, but his mama, as we're gonna see, went through some things and even getting pimped herself again, and therefore pimping him again. But he said to himself, do I he's like, maybe some part of me is happy that my mother's under the ground. He's like, is that something that I use against women? Is that a reason why I pimp? Because I was so angry and upset at my mother? Because see, out of all that situation they went through, his mother eventually meets a man, a husband. I'm sorry, what'd you say, babe? Yeah, watch those that watch your children like a hawk. Yeah. Make sure that you actually know these people. Because we just be like, I know anybody can be. Oh, I know these people, even if it's not sexual perversion. Some of these people are saying things to your children. Some of these people are saying negative things to your children all the time. Right? Some of these people talk bad about your children and when you're not around, and then when you come around, they start smiling. Right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with these children that you better be careful about. Some of these people are violent. Yeah, they hit your child and beat them up, and they know how to beat them where they don't get bruised. And then you come back around, oh, okay, I guess everything's okay. And the child doesn't want to say anything because the child knows they got to be watched by the person again. So they'll just shut up. See, there's a lot of stuff, your children will be telling you, I don't feel comfortable around so and so, and you still, well, I don't see anything wrong, and they're just gonna have to get over it. And look, that's just the way that they're so and so. No, look, but there's a reason. Even if it's not because they're doing something, there might be a spirit there. There might be something that they need to figure out first. But your child should always feel safe. If you training them as far as trying to give them an example of something that you might have to get past, sure, that's one thing. But to have somebody there where they're always like, I don't want to be around this person. I don't like this place. I want to go here. And we still like, no, no, because look, once again, we're in the system. We got a pimp mindset. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. We got this mindset of, oh, do this. All right. So, but here's something that happens even further that affected them more than what I just described. His mother comes into contact with a husband, not a man. Remember, in our culture, there's a difference. She comes into contact with a husband. The husband is told her visions and dreams by her. He takes care of her and her child. And it's the only man that Iceberg ever knew as dad, as daddy. Matter of fact, in a minute, you'll see how he even becomes comfortable with women calling him daddy later on, right? But this father, the only daddy, once again, the only daddy he's ever known, his mother is in a relationship with them. But here's the deal. This man, he has the only like black, I think it was I don't know if it's a salon or something like that, but he has the only black business in the middle of this white neighborhood, right? And he's doing very well for himself. He takes care of them. He's making so much money that when they become the church, because black folk all came to church together. So the only people whose families looked as great as this man, his mother, and himself when they would go to church were doctors and lawyers. That was it. So they would always look better than everybody else. They had everything they wanted. He was giving them everything in their dreams. He got the house they wanted. They got the car they wanted, the stove they wanted, everything that you could have asked for to be taken care of as queen. He took care of her, right? But once again, she's been pimped. Remember that, right? She's been pimped already. So she left, but she still kind of pines for her husband, even though her husband was trash. At least trash as a husband, not trash as a human being, because he could get better, right? But trash as a husband. All of a sudden, but the mother never loved the husband. She only got with him just because he could take care of things, but she never honored him. She never really loved him like that. She went through the motions, but she never really cared about him. So now the mother has become what happened to her. This man has become her bottom. Just like she was the husband, her former husband's, the love of her life at first, she was his bottom. He was supposed to be able to cheat with whoever, and she was supposed to just take it. Now she has become the pimp, and she is pimping out this man that will give her whatever she asks for. She's not worried about this. He will bow down, do whatever. So hey, if I got to have sex with you every once in a while, okay, I'll meet the quota. Remember what quota means. Quota, is that actual term that they use in sex trafficking, right? So it's basically, like for her, she's got him bound down. And Iceberg Slim says he was the happiest person in the world. He couldn't wait. He was one day, he said he remembers the day because it was basically the day that he feels like his life pretty much ended up going the direction it did. All of a sudden one day he comes into contact, or this guy comes into the shop, and this guy's a pimp. He didn't know that at the time, but that's what he was. He had seen him there plenty of times before. He's seen him getting his nails done. He was dressed up, and only a few people in that area could actually afford to be dressed up and stuff like that were black. So he would come in there, get his nails done and stuff like that. And he noticed that his mother was always pining for him. One of these days, his mother is smiling and doing stuff like that. And he doesn't know as a child what's going on, but he sees that his father is very nervous. And he sees that his father is, kind of perturbed, right? But the father won't say anything. He's the bottom. So, but now the pimp is talking to another pimp, and she's becoming the bottom. They're getting this pecking order in place. And so now, next thing you know, she leaves that day, and the father is very nervous. And the father says, as they're walking home, Iceberg Slim and his stepfather, if you will, but the only man he knows is daddy, are walking home. And sure enough, he grabs Iceberg Slim and he hugs on him. And he pulls him close in and he says, you and your mother would never leave me, right? And he starts to cry. No, daddy, we never leave you. And then the man starts crying because you guys are all the family I have in this world. Now he wouldn't say this to the mother because the mother's the pimp. He's the whore. He's the bottom. He feeds mama. And it's known. He knows that the only thing I really have is to give money, but it's not enough. Mom's not really, worried about that. So he's crying to the son. And sure enough, basically, she came home later on the next week, I believe. She basically like starts packing stuff up, says, I need to get away. The father, 6'6". This actually like made me be empathetic because I'm 6'5.5". So this father, this big man, 6'6", gets on his knees and starts hugging her legs. And it's like, please don't leave me. Y'all are all I got. I can't. If you kill me, it'll kill me if you leave. It'll kill me if you leave. And she being cold hearted, and also being, he said his mother was a great actor. She looks at him and she says, "Oh no, don't be silly. I just need to get away for some time." And she takes her son, Iceberg Slim, and they leave. And basically, that's pretty much the end of the relationship with the only man he ever knew, his father. And he actually is interesting because of how his mind works, because of what he was in. He actually said if the guy was smart, the pimp was smart, he would, because the pimp basically just took, I think his mother had $2,500. The pimp took it and lost it all gambling in one night. But he was like, if the pimp was smart, he would have just basically had the mother around, been messing with her, and would have let her keep making money for him. They would have saved up, and then who knows what they could have done and where they could have went. Right. But at the end of the day, that's what happened. And he then therefore starts living with this guy, and the mother now is working again, and the guy is not doing anything at all. Sounds like guys that play PlayStation all day, but have no job. You know, Iceberg Slim even makes the remark that he must have been a son of a bee in the bed. you know, but offers nothing, just stays home. And whenever the mother would leave, they would start being left alone with each other. And this is what I was talking about earlier. This is what the the father figure, the pimp, starts saying to Iceberg Slim. He starts saying stuff to him like, if you don't get your mother effing A away from here, if you don't get away from here, I swear I'll beat the out of you. I swear, boy, out of you. Like, you better run, you better go somewhere, you better but whenever mom was around, everything was smiles and stuff, right? And slowly but surely the smile started changing because he basically started, you know, pimping her out. She was already pimped out. She just hadn't transitioned to the streets yet, right? Finally, though, she got to her mileage, the end of her mileage, right? Finally, she got to the end of her mileage, though, right? And she gets to the end of her mileage. And when she gets to the end of her mileage, she's like, okay, enough is enough. And it even got to a point to where she had bought her son a cat. And this pimp basically had taken the cat because I think it peed on the floor or something. And he took the cat and he beat the cat to death. He didn't think that the son could see him, or Iceberg Slim could see him, but Iceberg Slim saw him. So the mother finally, enough is enough. She leaves. She realizes that she's in a bad situation. And by the way, they had even met his actual father. His actual father had came, found him, and said, "I'm sorry. Like, hey, I'm doing better now. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do." And the mother now, she has a pimp mentality, so she's with this pimp, and they basically come up with a plan to where she starts acting like she's gonna live with them again and stuff. And then all of a sudden, they come home and all the stuff is gone out the house. And she says, "Oh well, I'll just go somewhere. When you get stuff together, let me know when everything's together." And then her and her pimp and Iceberg Slim, they left together. See, Iceberg Slim, he became what he saw over and over again, just like we become what we see over and over again. The psychology of the pimp mentality of this pimp code is wild, right? So, but she started to get to the end of her mileage, and something happened. And she just said, "Okay," so she left, and the guy couldn't find her. They found a hotel that they were living in. I had a but like a Bunsen burner or something, and they had a bathroom they could use down the hallway, shared bathroom, and that was where they lived for a while. It was going to be his born day. I forget which born day he said it was, but it's going to be his born day. His born day was like on the 6th of whatever month, September, October, somewhere in there. So she basically says, "I'm gonna go ahead and I'll be home for your born day at 6 o'clock p.m." No, that's what it is. "I'm gonna be home for your born day at 6 o'clock p.m." No, yeah, it was like at 6 on the 6th or something like that. Anyway, so he's like, "Cool." So he waits for her. She never comes home. Then the next day she came home. She had been found by the pimp. He had beat the mess out of her, had wired her jaw shut. So now Iceberg Slim being pimped, seeing his mom be pimped, seeing his mom pimp others, and seeing and being angry in it. He legit, um, as a youngster, he had a knife and he was huddled underneath the staircase where the guy, lived, where they had escaped from. He was huddled in there for 2 days, ready to stab him. The guy never came back. That's the only reason he didn't kill him. Later on, he would discover that this guy he actually, they would be in the same neighborhood. He would look out his window one day and see that the guy was, I think, was a trash collector now. And he would go outside. He said he didn't remember. He said he blacked out. He said he saw something that looked familiar to him, and he says he doesn't remember anything. All he remembers is he was standing over him with a pistol. Right? See, this thing it goes deep. It makes you make actions and you don't even know what you're doing. He literally does. He can't tell you how he got from his apartment building. He said he saw something that looked familiar. And the next thing he knew, he was standing over somebody with a gun. And it wasn't until it came to that he realized, oh, this is the guy that wired my mother's jaw shut and messed around and took me from the only man I knew as dad. And he even said when he was standing over his mother's grave, when he describes that scene in the book, it says when he's standing over his mother's grave, he's looking down and he says to her out loud, he says, "You didn't know what you were doing, mama. You didn't know I was your only child." He's like, "You was kind of," this is what he said. He said, "You were a poor, dumb Southern girl, and you just got duped and you didn't know any better." And he said he started to cry and tear up because he thought about, you know, the rotting body, or the dead man, what that the only man he knew, his father, that probably was dead too. And he was just thinking about the fact of how he got done dirty. He had never really had a chance to really cry that out or think about that, but this only man he knew, his dad, would have hurt him. He's realizing this all towards the end of life, right? He's realizing this and realizing, man, this was really bad. Yeah, a vicious cycle. Like this is really, really terrible. Like a lot of us, we all got pimped. Wow, we all got pimped. And he got it worse than in his mind, he got it worse than all of us. Because he was the only person in all of this that, as far as Iceberg Slim, obviously he probably had made mistakes and stuff, but as far as Iceberg Slim was concerned, he was the only man that didn't have any fault. That was not a pimp. He was a whore who signed up for it, sure, but he didn't. He was hoping that that he wouldn't keep getting pimped out, or even if he was. What's that song? Um, you just keep on using me, right? Until you use me. He just wanted. He was like the guy was just like, shoot, I don't even care. Keep on using me until you use me up, and that's a bad spot to be in. We shouldn't be there, but that's where he was. He was like the only guy that really wasn't pimping anybody. Was this man that I only knew for a little bit of my life. Yeah, Bill Withers is the one that sings that song. Yeah, you know, like he's the only one that it wasn't their fault, and so he had a moment in time to say, "Wow, this is wild. This is messed up. This is jacked up. What happened to this man?" So but it took him until he had got out the game, stopped dealing with prison, stopped being separated. At this time, he had stopped doing heroin for like 10 years. He had stopped pimping for 5 years. He was married to a very beautiful woman, had 2 children, one on the way. And now all he wished to do as he was standing there was he wished to become the man that he never got a chance to be taught, and he wished that his mother would be proud of him. That's all he had left in his mind. And of course, he would go on to do greater things, as we can see, writing a book and doing things like that and going through things. But yeah, yeah, you got to change that environment, change that wineskin, right? Get that new wineskin for that new wine. You got that new thing that we're trying to do, but you got to have that new wineskin for it. And so, that was pivotal for him, and at the end of the day, I'll end in the same way kind of that Dave Chappelle did. For those of you who've heard Dave Chappelle talk about these things, I'll kind of end where Dave Chappelle did, to kind of show you how the system uses you and why we need to get out of the system, and why we need to realize that we don't need to let somebody else declare what our mileage is or whatever, right? Um, Dave Chappelle was talking about in the skit, and he just basically quoted the book, or he didn't quote it, but he was basically talking about what was in the book. So he actually has a different and interesting reference or way of referencing this, because he's talking about his career and why he got out when he did, before everybody knew him. Now he's back in, but he's back in only on his terms. And thank you for the love, appreciate it. Dave Chappelle is talking about, so a lot of you, I'll probably say it more like he says it than Iceberg says it, but you'll get the gist of it nonetheless. Some of you've heard this before, but basically, Iceberg Slim, uh there's a situation where his bottom, remember, the bottom B is the one that's down, supposed to give the orders and all this, the one that everybody looks up to. He knows she's running low on her mileage. In other words, she's turned too many tricks. She's done too many jobs. She's shown up too many times. Her body can't take it anymore. It's time for her to quit. So she's gotten to a place where it's time for her to quit. It's time for her to give up. It's time for her to be done. And Iceberg can tell, because she's been arguing and she's been muttering under her breath. She does what she's supposed to do, but she's not doing it as cheerfully and this and that anymore. And that's the person that's supposed to set the example, right? That's the person that's supposed to set the example for the other. Remember, what did they call them? Each other? Wifey. So for the other wifeys, right? That's what she's supposed to be, the one to tell them it's okay, go out there, make this money, do this, do that, blah, blah, boom, boom, boom. Meanwhile, though, he's realizing what's going on. Remember, once again, what does it say? Let's just look at the quote real quick. I promise you I'm not going to take up too much more time, because we're already at the end of our time. But what's the quote again? Oh, I'm sorry, let me go to the one I'm looking for. Where is it at? It says, a pimp is happy when his whores giggle. He knows they are still asleep. All whores have one thing in common: just like the chump humping for the white boss. It thrills them when the pimp makes mistakes. They watch and wait for his downfall. A pimp is the loneliest bastard on earth. He's got to know his whores. He can't let them know him. He's got to be God all the way. So he knows that she's coming towards the end. He knows her. He knows that he's coming towards the end. He knows that she can't take much more. So what does he do? He comes up with a plan, right? He comes up with a plan. This is what he does. One of the wildest things you'll ever hear, but this is what they do to you. He's like, okay, fine. You getting towards the end, this and that. You saying that you done? Yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna go back. I'm finished with this. You ain't nothing to blah blah. He's like, okay, look, I just need you to turn one last trick. You turn one last trick, I'll let you go. Right? I need you to just listen one more time. I need you to just trust me one more time. I need you to vote just one more time, right? Just turn one last trick. Turn one last trick. Baby, just let me come and talk to you one more time. Just give me one more chance. Just turn one last trick. You ready to go? Fine, go. I just want one last trick from you. Okay, fine. I'll do whatever. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then I'm done with your, you know what, right? Okay. He says, I'm going to give you some, and I forget what it's called. I'm going to give you basically some powder. I'm going to give you a bag of it. Enough of, you put a couple of these things in, it's going to be enough to knock them out, right? I want you to go ahead and take this bag. There's going to be a customer that's going to be in this room, blah, blah, blah. You're going to go over there. You're going to go ahead, act like you're going to turn the trick. And I want you to put the stuff in his drink. When he falls asleep, right? Then we're going to take his money. We're going to be out. That's it. That's all you want me to do? Yeah, that's it. I told you, B. That's it. That's it. Just go ahead, right? And just go over there. And I want you to go ahead and be Cardi B style, for real, what Cardi B used to do to make her money to get in the studio. Same mentality, same code, the pimp code, right? That's all I want you to do is go, but I want you to go over there. I want you to go to that room. I want you to put this in their drink. They're going to pass out. We're going to rob them, and that's it. Okay, fine, daddy, whatever. So she goes and does what she's supposed to do. It's taking a little while, though. So he's trying to wait and see what's going on. Like, why is this beat taking so long? She comes back and she's scared. What's going on? What you mean? Like, what you scared about? Just that I'm scared. I did what you told me to do, but something's not right. Something's not right. They go up to the room, right? No. Before they go to the room, sorry, something's not right now. So, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? I gave him what you told me to do. I put the whole thing in there, and then I put it in his drink or whatever, and then he took it. He's like, B, you gave him the whole thing. He's like, you weren't supposed to give him the whole thing. He's like, oh my goodness, this is bad. This is terrible. This is awful. He's like, okay. All right, we're gonna go. I mean, it would go see what's going on over there. So they go over there, and basically he looks at the guy, right? Is looking at him. He's looking at him, and inspects him and says, I think that he's dead. And she's like, oh no, he's dead. He's dead. I can't deal with he's dead. He's dead. I can't deal with this. I can't deal with that. He's dead. He's like, I think he's dead. So, right. But he says, wait a minute, I'm gonna call somebody. So he calls the doctor over. Doctor comes over, tries to take his pulse, looks for signs, and says, yeah, he's dead. She's living. She's no, not living, but she's in despair. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I killed this man. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And he's like, B, we ain't killed nobody. He's like, you killed him. That's what. See, the burden of proof. See, pimping. We ain't do nothing. Now he's the one that what put you in a position in the first. Remember the wire hangers? If you beat somebody, you beat them up, you heat it up, you beat them with the wire hanger. They're going through something. You fix them a bath. You put some stuff in there to help them out. You to heal. You give them some drugs and stuff, and then you let them be there. They'll be so happy that you fixed the situation for them. They'll forget you're the person that put them in the situation in the first place. Remember that? Remember that. Okay. So here we go. So he's like, we ain't do nothing. You killed him, not us. Right. But he said, hold on, hold on. He calls he calls somebody else, and these two guys come over, right? They roll up this guy in a carpet, and they take him out. All right. Then he looks under the bed and he grabs the money. There's a suitcase full of money under the bed, and they leave together, and they've accomplished all their business. They've accomplished everything, and then they're traveling in the car, and he's like, okay, look, B, look, I know you in trouble, this and that, but I told you. Remember, like I said, you got to be dedicated to me to the end. You got to listen to every word I say, right? Be dedicated to me to the end. I'm dedicated to you. I'm gonna make sure I take care of you. I've always taken care of you, haven't I? Yes, Daddy. You always did take care of me. Yeah. So remember, I got you. I got you. But you're gonna have to listen to everything that I have to say. But give me some time. You still gonna make your way out, but right now it's gonna be a little messed up for you. So until then, I'll just make sure that I cover you. So just keep working for me, keep tricking for me for a minute, and I promise you can get away. Okay, Daddy. Right? She's happy that he fixed what he put her in the first place. But here's the problem. Here's the problem with it. Everything was a lie. He knew that his bottom B, right, was getting ready to leave. Her mileage was up. He needed to get more mileage because he didn't have anybody ready to go in that position. So what did he do? Basically, he needed her to keep being around to train everybody. He needed her attitude to go away. He set it up. The person that was in the bed was somebody that he knew. The person in the bed never actually died. They faked like they were dead. The powdered substance that he gave her was nothing more than, like, basically you could say something as easy as like food coloring or something like that. The doctor that came to see her was just simply a butcher who happened to have a white smock, or whatever you call those things, forgive me, a white coat. And he brought the white coat over with a name tag on and basically inspected the body, or acted like he was inspecting it, put his hands like this, and just said that the person was dead. The two people that came to roll the body up and take it out and get rid of it, all they did was take it, unroll it so the person could be in the back of the truck. They left down a little bit or whatever, and then they let the person out. And they were people that were helping, that were movers, because Iceberg Slim was actually moving and had hired a moving company. Right. And so he just paid him extra money to be part of it. And the money that was underneath the bed, it was Iceberg Slim's money the whole time. All they did was make sure that he paid everybody to do their job. And now he invested, got all these other people involved to make you think that all this was really happening. And the reality is all that was done, all those people were in on it. All those people will go back to their lives unaffected, oblivious, because they don't care. That just basically means you don't care what somebody's going through. So oblivious to what happens to this girl because they got paid enough. Meanwhile, she was going to keep turning tricks now for another 5-6 months. She was ready to go. Now she was going to keep making money for 5-6 months. That's the game. That's the game. They set up this whole illusion around you and pay all these people and have you and I arguing about each other and have you guys forgetting what the main thing is and telling you that you shouldn't separate from the system and saying that, see, look, if you don't stay on the plantation, see, it's going to be worse for you out there. What's that movie I was just talking about the other day? That movie we were talking about where all those people lived in the same place or whatever, and they thought there were monsters that were out there killing people, and it was actually fake, monsters and stuff like that, and they didn't even know. They were stuck in like the 1800s or something like that in their lifestyle. But as soon as they left out there, it has the same guy in it who played in Gladiator, who played the bad guy, played Commodus in Gladiator or whatever, and played in the Signs movie and played in the Joker as well. The Village, yeah. Yeah, M. Night Shyamalan movie. Yeah, thank you, babe. Yeah, The Village, right? The same thing. Hey, if you leave this situation, you know you're gonna die out here. You know that's what the slave masters said to the slaves. Hey, if you run away from here, there's other things that'll get you. If you go to another plantation, they'll be worse to you out there. If you go to up north, this is what they do to the people in the north, right? If you leave, if you try to separate and come out of this world, you're not gonna be able to make it, right? That was the Sambo spirit. That was the house Negro. right? Thank you for the love, right? Same thing. He put all this stuff together because he knew she was going to leave. Put all this stuff together because she knew he was going to leave. The real purpose I have all this here is because I'm out of the system where I have to worry about what people think about it. Right? As a vow to the Most High. But nevertheless, right? All these things that people will come as distraction and all this stuff they want to do, right? All the stuff we want to do is because people don't want you to separate. People don't want you to separate. People are okay with you going through the same stuff and the same trauma and the same weird value system and the same thing that's killing your people. All this stuff. People are okay with it. Hey, let them keep dying. Let them keep hurting. Let them keep doing this. Let them keep doing that. Who cares about what they're going through? Why do you care? Why do you care about it? It's not yours. Stop bringing up the past. Why are you worried about it? Hey, even though you're going through trauma, who cares if you're going through trauma? Get a real job. Dress like us. Working 9 to 5. Make sure your hair is cut. Do all these things or whatever. Every time you get that close to freedom. That's why Yahshua said, once again, Mark chapter 12, verse 28 through 34, read towards the end. He said, you're not far from the kingdom of heaven. Just because you've learned some of these things, you still got to address some things in your life and be diligent and be complete and be competent and be consistent. Don't give up. Don't say, I'm close. That's great enough. No, close is not it. It is it. Close is not it. It is it. Close is not it. Right? It is it. Don't talk about I'm close to it and then give up. Don't talk about I'm close to it and you're not going to work out anymore. Don't talk about I'm close to it and I'm not going to pray anymore. Don't talk about I'm close to it and I'm not going to study anymore. Don't talk about I'm close to it and I'm not going to teach my children anymore. No, get there. Get all the way there. And then you'll find when you get there, you still have a work ethic that drives you because your work never ends. So you can divorce yourself from your job, but you can never retire from your work. Impossible. If you do, it's improbable that the blessings that you want will flow down. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. So let's get this going. How you doing, brother Ricky? Right. Let's get this going. Let's be on point. Let's be articulate. Let's be like so many different things people will say about you. You got to be able to say, so what? He's trying to separate. Okay, fine. Pimps don't like it when hoes separate. And even if they say they don't need you, they needed you the whole time. But guess what? If you can go ahead and it's 11:11, babe. If you could go ahead and be greater today. All right, so a value to them. See, last thing, very last thing. This is Master P. Master P, he was going to get started. He went to see, I forget which one, but one of the big time Ashkenazi people that are in charge of things today in the music industry, right? And Master P was they were having a conversation and they were talking about contract, excuse me, what they were going to do for him and all these different things, etc. Right? And Master P basically is like, well, um, Master P basically is like, he has a meeting with him. His cousin is with him, and the guy's like, "Well, we'll give you $1 million contract." And Master B says, "I'm going to think about it." And the guy says, "Well, if you leave here and don't come back, you'll never work in this town ever." And so Master P gets on the plane and heads back to New Orleans with his cousin. His cousin is upset, frustrated, mad, angry. It was Clive. It was thank you. I couldn't remember which one. I was trying to say the other one, Leo Cohen, but I knew that was wrong. Yeah. So yeah. So thank you, Clive Davis. So he leaves. His cousin is mad with him while on the plane. Why didn't you take that man's money, man? You got $1 million. You know what you can do with $1 million? And Master P looked at his cousin and said, "Hey, cuz, look, if he's wanting to pay me $1 million up front, right?" He was like, "How much money you think I'm really worth to these people?" And his cousin thought about it, said, "Hmm." And then Master P, man, his cousin was like, "Okay, what we need to do?" And Master P said, "Let's go back." And they started selling stuff out the back of their car. Started traveling to California and being broke, but trying to make shows where nobody knew who they were, but still trying to be out there, right? And you got to think about yourself. Even if you've been a bottom B in this situation, even if you've been a B, even if you've been part of the stable, whatever it is, even if they made whores out of us, even if you've been the pimp, you have a chance to get out, right? But the bottom B, she's the one that makes everything run anyways, right? You're the one that makes everything run anyways, right? You're the one that makes it run. They might only give you $17 and everybody else on your job make $10 an hour, but you don't want to make everything run. And if it's getting to a point to where $17 an hour is no longer appropriate for the lifestyle that I want, and I need to get into something greater, you have to start praying about that and seeing what time is it to do, right? Whatever your situation is, you got to start asking yourself, is it time to separate? Is it time to get with like-minded people? Is it time to build something that we can leave to our children's children? I know the Bible says children's children. In my mind, I'm focused on children's children, because if we can get it there, then our children's children should be okay, right? Right? If it's your vote that is always the swing vote, whoever the black community says will be in office is always who gets in office. If you have that much power, if you have that much power, you got to start asking yourself, why don't I just use that for myself and my community and my wife and my children and my husband and my parents and right? If we were to separate from America just as what they call black people or African Americans or whatever they want to call you, if we were to separate as a diaspora, just out of people in the United States of America, do you know that as far as the amount of money we bring in, we would be the number 8 nation? If we just separated, we would become the number 8 nation in the world as far as financial income. You're told you're poor, but you're number 8. And a lot of us are broke and poor, and we still number 8. How does that happen? And how do we still not have the wealth? See, this mathematics, you got to start looking at it. Dr. Cloud Anderson, he fixes this for you. How do you become the number 8 nation in the world just off of your wealth? But at the same time, you still only own 0.5% of the wealth. That means that the 1% of 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 the 1%, et cetera, are rocking us and rocking everybody. So we have to get in a position to where we're ready to be that and come out of that. Just as Iceberg said, he said, "Forgive me at the outset. I must admit that I'm ill, that I've gone through this trauma, that I've been, indoctrinated." He said, "But I'm better, and I'm getting better every day." Yeah, rocking us right to sleep. Hence what we were talking about with what did he say? Oh yeah, it makes a pimp happy to hear his bees giggle or his whores giggle. It means that they are still asleep. But see, and that's what it is. See, people are at Psalm 123, verse 4. People are at ease with your being full of scorn or being scorned all the time. People are at ease with it. But when you start coming out of it and those giggles go away. See, it used to be we would giggle. African booty scratcher, giggle, giggle, giggle. You know? Look at that dude over there, man. His shoes falling apart. He ain't got these new Jordans like I got, bro. Man, you a square, bro. You out here reading and writing and stuff, man. Whatever, man. They used to make us laugh at people. Now it's not funny. And the dragon, the beast, and the second beast, they know that you see that it ain't funny. And the Most High is paying attention, and He says they get it. It ain't funny. These curses, they want them off of them. He said they're coming back to my law. They're coming back to my name. Amen. Yeah, you exactly right, babe. And so I don't glorify pimping, but I glorify truth. And the fact that Iceberg Slim was ready to come out and tell us the truth, I'm grateful for him. He telling you the game. Once again, he told you there was a facade of democracy and freedom. Or no, justice and democracy. It was a facade, a fake facade of justice and democracy. It's not funny anymore, is it? It's not funny when we keep seeing boy after boy after boy, girl after girl after girl, father after father after father, mother after mother after mother. They tell us there's no fathers, but you kill our fathers. And then have the audacity to tell us that we need to become that which you killed. That's Fugazi stuff, yeah. Look up Fugazi, by the way. Fugazi, what was it, a limo company or something like that never actually paid their bills and never did something like that and always wrote bad checks. So whenever you hear somebody say Fugazi or Fugazi, that's what they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't funny then, it should have never been funny, but we giggled. But now we've come out and it's not funny anymore. He was a pimp It was cool when he's coming up and stuff, but then he realized having to go to jail, being a heroin addict. There's a lot of stuff that comes with being a pimp. Even if you think you pimping people now, it's like the person, like a lot of drug dealers. What happens to them? A lot of drug dealers eventually start going down. Why? Because they get high off their own supply. Y'all be thinking they get high off their own supply, so people come to them. No, if you, especially if you're a big time, big time, drug dealer, whatever, getting high off your own supply is not a problem financially. It's a problem because you don't think straight. You think like the very people that you make money off of that you pimp. It's a nervous giggle. There you go, nervous laughter. So I thank you guys. Hopefully you got something out of it. I know it's a little different, but sometimes it's okay.